but it doesn't always capture something. It's just great to have at the ready, so you guys can obviously see me in there. We're literally looking for those blue and black spots to start moving on their own. Throughout the night, I may pull out pieces just in case, you know, I see somebody, and you should see evidence anyway, just so you guys know what you're listening for, what you're watching for, those kind of things. But you're going to get this full recording back tomorrow anyway. So this is going to go to you.
Okay, thank you.
So with that being said, you're going to keep it horizontal all night.
Okay.
What I do with that is I send it to YouTube, then back to my website, so it doesn't eat up all the data. But we don't like to flip these. YouTube doesn't like it anyway, so if you flip it around a lot, the orange square that you see on your screen should be on the left-hand side. If that turns to a circle, just tap it again and let me know. That means I just have to splice some video together. Turn into an AV tech on top of a writer with this kind of career. All right, so let's... Carla, was it?
Yes.
So normally I'm fully booked solid, like 10 people every night. So the rain kind of scares people away. So I'm horrible with names, was the whole point of that whole scenario. Was I'll get it because it's really easy. There's only 2 of you. So if I screw it up, you guys can get permission to hit me.
It's all right.
All right, so spirit boxes. We're going to use a couple of different spirit boxes tonight. You're going to actually have 2. Just because of the short amount of people that we have. So this first one, you guys are familiar with the white noise that Zach Bagans told you what he thinks he heard. Mine is a little different. It's going to give you the white noise, but it's sweeping through all of the FM radio stations slower than TV. Let's put it that way. I want the radio chatter to come through. It's another method that whatever you hear out of the DJs, the song lyrics, or the commercials, it's a 50-50 shot that we can probably tie to a location, a person we're talking about, or something going on with one of us. It happens all the time. So, and not to mention, you're not used to listening to this. So, again, that's another reason why it's slowed down. If I gave you just a whole thing of nothing but static, it's no fun. So, let me get this set up. And the cool thing about this particular one is that it records the entire radio sweep for us, even when it's on mute without any outside noise. So we will not hear what we are saying on this recording, and even when I give it back to you tomorrow, it's already recording now, so it's going to be at a nice even volume. You only have one button to worry about. It's a volume button at the very top. It's a wheel. So there's spirit box number 1. I've been putting in conjunction with this particular spirit box only because it makes for an interesting tie-in.
So how do you get these things? You just go to eBay, not eBay, but Amazon, and just order them?
A lot of it came from Amazon. That particular one came from a company called Ghost Stop. So Ghost Stop that's all they do. They're a shop down in Florida, and they create their own things. That's their creation. I'm going to be using another one of their creations. That's what I'll be using. It doesn't record anything, but again, nice to have it ready. But I mean, that's a FLIR thermal imaging camera. That's the real deal. That's not a an app or anything like that. Speaking of apps, we're going to use something close to an Ovilus. I'm sure you guys have seen those on TV. So I've tested dozens of different types of apps because I wanted to be able to give a full list back to my guests with links and all of that mess. So this is obviously going to give us a word in the middle of the screen, and it saves the entire list. So
that's
the
really
cool and it's got timestamps on it. That was another key thing is when I'm trying to match up what questions were asked, I can then go to the timestamps and see where things were started. That's last night's list. I'm going to clear them out because they already have their stuff. We're going to start you guys off fresh. What I will tell you about this app is it is an app. It is meant to be a game. 80% of this is BS. It doesn't mean anything. So it's the other 5 to 20%, and I say that because we might get one term that might be relevant. Or it might be 15. You're literally going to use both of those in conjunction with one another. I know, lots of fun, right? So my tool, what am I going to be using? And I have laser grids and all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, you guys know the deal.
Stuff that makes, like when you have the game, Xbox, like Xbox Direct, you get the little dots. And
So I have the green laser pen, which is all of the little dots, and then I have a red square grid. So the red square grid, and I usually have a photographer teamed up with them because I have just a straight up digital camera, no flash. They're taking pictures through it, so that way when I capture something with the red grid, I can put it in 3D software, and then I can get the full view all the way around it, plus measurements, and that way we know exactly what we caught. However,
they get really excited on TV when they get something like that.
I do too. This is a millimeter, so this is my latest, I guess, apprehension of tools. So it's going to do a couple of different things for us. First off, in the event you actually capture something, we have ambient temperature going on at the bottom. So I can find out where that cold spot is coming from, and then we can still try to debunk it. I'm never going to make stuff up. The bigger numbers, that's an EMF. So like the little blinky lights that they have on TV,
Yes.
I have one of those too, and I may pull it out just to put in my bag so we can all see it. But this is the way more accurate.
Okay.
The last thing it has, I know this thing does a lot, so the person that normally gets this out of the group has to be pretty tech savvy. It has a motion detector, so it's a REM pod. So as you get close to the antenna,
Yes.
the lights will flash. The closer you get, the higher those lights will go.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't always keep that on because it's super annoying for your audio.
Okay.
There are certain hot spots that I will pull it out and say, let me go test the REM pod. You guys play with the spirit boxes and kind of keep in mind what's going on with that.
Got it. Okay.
And I get excited about anything over 0.4 as far as an EMF because that's the first, well, technically the second light on your standard EMF K2 meters.
Okay.
So I've done a comparison. So 0.4 is usually my meter, and I'll always tell you like, hey, we're going to walk, over some parking meters. So those electrical lines are underneath. I don't want any false positives.
Right.
So again, I'll always debunk things almost ahead of time because I know where certain things are in the city.
Because I know that they say that high EMF can cause, not delusions, but
Right.
hearing things and
Yeah, and we're actually going to get into that next.
Yeah.
Because again, I told you it's not a scary tour, but I kind of
Right.
have to give that heated warning
Sure.
that we're going to hit some paranormal spots tonight.
Yeah.
Whether or not we get activity is
Right.
up to them, not me. However, the story I'm about to tell you is kind of like that segue into that.
Okay.
So we start here for a reason. It wasn't just some weird random empty bar that I said, okay, let's start here.
Okay.
This place used to be called Big John's. And Big John was a football player for the 1947 New York Giants. So he used to sit in the back of the bar, and he would tell the bartender, because Big John owned the place, if the cadets that were coming over from the Citadel, which is about a mile over, they would come over for a drink, but Big John would tell them if they were old enough to drink.
Okay.
Well, one night, two guys come in. They're not old enough. He tells the bartender, get them out of here. So they leave, pretty mad. They come back the next night, and they try to take the cash register from the front of the bar. Why you'd have a cash register by the doorway, I don't know. But
Okay.
Big John sees what's happening, and he decides he's going to get into a bar fight. So he starts fighting off these two cadets. The bag's a little bit lighter. Yeah. So he starts fighting with these two cadets, and next thing you know, a couple of shots were fired, and John gets hit in the neck. The bullet ricochets, lands in the wall. John goes back to the bar. He tells the bartender to get him another beer and to go get the two guys on the floor in an ambulance. Now, nobody died in that story.
Okay.
It's the bullet hole that's allegedly haunting the place. So I say allegedly because they are renovating it, and I'll have to double check to see if it's still there once they're done.
Okay.
But people that sit in the front get those symptoms that you just mentioned, a little queasy, nauseous, headaches, because
Really?
the only EMF I've ever gotten out of that place has been in the front of the bar from time to time.
I see.
So again, I say this because I don't know how paranormal activity is going to affect you.
Right. Of
Please
course.
let me know if you have any of those symptoms. It's a big deal.
Okay.
I've had
Queasiness, just dizziness.
anything, yeah.
Okay.
Slightest headache, we need to move.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
not to say that everywhere we're going is happy, but I have had people literally pass out just from too much activity.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about something other than our health. Did you see the mantle above your heads?
Yes.
We had a big earthquake here in 1886. This is allegedly where the first death from that earthquake occurred. A piece of the mantle from the front of the building broke off, struck somebody in the head, and his ghost is said to be seen right here on East Bay Street. Now, do I have any proof of that? I do not. It's just a great segue story to tell you, hey, you might get sick on this tour. Let's go ghost hunting.
All right.
So you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to head this way. And it's still a weekday, so it might feel like we have the whole city to ourselves.
Got it.
Which kind of reminds us of a not busy New Orleans.
So I want you to think of your entire time with me as almost kind of like a training course. And
Sure.
I know you guys said you had some family. Did you ever do anything with them to learn a little bit about it?
We just heard about them. They would just
Gotcha.
tell stories.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of like your novice level.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, we're going to make things really easy here.
All right.
We didn't cover COVID anything, so you guys see I have a mask hanging. If I have to get close to you based on your device, closer than what we already are,
Okay.
I'll obviously mask up. I don't expect you guys to do anything. It's your tour. You do what you want. There's no more citations, so I'm
Right.
not so much worried about it.
Right.
No, I have not been vaccinated. I like to be open about that.
Yeah.
And as far as your devices, I do sanitize them twice a day.
Okay.
Once before I upload all the data from the previous night, and then once before the tour that
Okay.
I do in the evenings.
Yeah.
So, just so you guys know.
I've been vaccinated, and we have a mask, so we're good.
My wife has CMT, so we just went back and forth. Plus, she works with the public, you know,
Wow.
in a much bigger scale than what I do.
Right.
So, for my sake, and I have epilepsy, so this thing is really difficult for me to have.
Right.
You know, and when we were mandated to have it, you know, it was kind of like I don't carry a card that says I have seizures.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I am heavily medicated. It
Right.
just gets really hard. The whole mental thing for me is where it gets a problem.
Sure.
It's not breathing or anything like that. It's just it's a mental issue.
Right.
But anyway, so this place is the Big Red Barn. That's what I like to call this place. So,
Okay.
and you're going to find I love parking lots because when I have my groups of 10, we get to spread out, and I am taking you to places that once were. So
Right.
it's not just random parking lots.
Okay.
This is where we keep the horses for the carriage rides for one specific company.
Ghostbusters, what do you want?
That's how I know I got another booking that I have to log
Okay.
in.
Okay.
So the horses in there don't have glass in their windows, so it kind of not going to be super loud with your red spirit box. So it's just going to be audible to the three of us.
Okay.
But this is the same red barn where we kept horses that delivered milk to Charleston.
Wow.
So think 1860s and 1920s.
Yeah,
Okay, and
yeah.
there's not a whole lot of history here. That's it. This is where I get to bounce around with everybody and kind of show them different tactics with their tools.
Right.
So let's talk about spirit boxes first because that's mainly what we have, right? so
Okay.
spirit boxes. This isn't TV. This isn't is somebody here?
Right.
Because if you hear the word no, that means somebody's here,
Right.
right? They answered you.
Right.
Right.
But your red spirit box, if you heard a real estate commercial and the word houses came through, you think you heard the word yes because obviously houses and yes sound very similar.
Right.
We're just going to not ask yes or no questions. There's
Sure.
always a way to reword it.
Okay.
And my group last night struggled like big time with that. And it was a funny thing. They were like,
Yeah.
were you happy about this? I'm like, you can't ask about feelings. You can't ask yes or no questions. Try
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But this is more, we're going to try to start you off with something you already know.
Okay.
This is a red barn. So
Okay.
if somebody's here, tell us what color the barn is.
Right.
I want you to
Okay.
keep in mind, you might not hear specifically the color red. You want to think of this thing. Did you see the movie Transformers?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember Bumblebee, how he talked through the radio?
Yes.
Same principle.
Okay.
So he had to find the right words to be able to convey his message.
Right.
We're doing the same thing here. So what color is the barn? Fire truck. Fire trucks are generally known to be red.
Okay.
Or we might hear the word blood or heart, things that are generally
Yeah.
that we think of as red.
Got it.
So again, very common terms.
Okay.
Okay.
Any event we don't get an answer, we're going to open it up a little bit to what's inside the barn. Now we know we have horses, animals, anything dealing with horses really. Not to mention they're draft horses, so the word draft might come through.
Okay.
They were delivery horses. They delivered milk. They also delivered eggs. So protein and calcium could be words that we hear as well. It's happened in the past.
Okay.
We could hear 2-digit numbers. It might not be anybody from the Red Barn at all. Jersey numbers from Big John's teammates. Happens all the time.
Okay.
However, I don't get excited about one little thing. For example, I've been giving this one, it explains it a lot more. If we hear the number 44, but then you have the word art on Blue Spirit Box, we'll just call them red and blue, Matrix. Sorry, I'm a big movie buff. Did you guys catch
Yeah,
on to
that's
that?
okay. I am too.
So your Blue Spirit Box has the word art. Well, Art Faircloth was number 44 that played with Big John in 1947. So you
Okay.
see how I have to put those clues together? That's
Sure.
really what this is about, is what are the clues? So that's basically how we're going to use your spirit boxes all night. Now, the next place that we go to, it's not going to be what color's George Washington's white horse kind of mentality.
Right.
You're going to be hopefully gaining answers from the spirits themselves without me telling you what they are. Right now, I'm giving you a suggestive thought, so that way you kind of get in the process of how to listen. With your particular device, really what we're looking for here is you want to try to keep somebody's base temperature and a human in there. I know there's
Right.
just the three of us, and that can be
Right.
difficult, so it doesn't have to be all the time.
Right.
But watch, go ahead and point it at this wood panel right here. And
Just dropping.
right, well, look at how the colors move.
Yeah.
It pretty much bled out, right?
Yes.
So watch what happens when you put my hand in there,
It's right back in. Yeah. Focus
So-
is right back. Yeah.
and then it should go back up to red. See how it kind of bleeds back up to red?
Yes.
It always wants to find that base temperature.
Okay.
And the more color you have in there, the easier it is to see other things move that aren't supposed to.
I see.
That's where I get excited.
I see.
And again, if you catch little glitches, like something white kind of flashed across, or something along those lines, that's happened before.
Yeah.
It's really about, you're the camera guy.
Yeah.
That's really what your job is
Okay.
today. Even if you don't watch it, it's okay. It's much easier to watch it on a computer or TV anyway.
Okay.
So I don't know if you guys watch YouTube on your TVs, but sometimes I have to see where the details are.
Okay.
Let's get that spirit box up a little bit and let's start listening and let's get some questions going. And we're only going to spend like 5 minutes here just so
Okay.
you guys get to use how to use
Sure.
the device.
So, how many times a day or how many times a week was milk delivered?
There you go. It's a great question. Probably turn it up a little bit more just so you can actually hear it.
Were there any names of the people who you delivered milk to that you particularly liked?
Good questions. People don't usually go off the cuff of what I'm asking them to do. That's great. I love it.
Did you ever have any issues with the horses not wanting to go the way that you wanted to, wanting to just stay?
That's a yes or no.
Oh, I guess it was. Sorry.
That's tough.
I heard you whisper it the first
I
time.
know.
That's
I
what
know.
I'm saying.
Right? Did you have issues with the bottles breaking? Or what material were the containers made out of that you carried the milk in?
So usually when I'm going through a question and answer, such like what you're doing, I stick with one question,
Oh, okay.
2, 3, maybe 4 tries.
Okay.
Just to kind of give them time to muster up that energy. So one other thing, at times I may say, hey Carla, what were our words during this time period?
Okay.
Hit the little calendar if you can,
Okay.
next to the words, you got it. And then it'll show you all the words that we've had so far.
Entirely money, youngster. It's like when you're telling the story about the guy killing the young people. It came up youngster, and yeah, when you were telling the first step and before you got into it, finish came up. So it's kind of
Said finish?
yeah,
Okay.
finish like come on.
Yeah, like get it.
Anyway, I don't know.
So-
It's funny that youngster did come up.
I do like youngster, that's good.
Yeah.
Because Big John at the time would have been probably close to his 60s, if I'm not mistaken.
But yeah, youngster did come up whenever you did that.
Never hit the red X's. You always want to just hit the circle back to get back to the main screen. Now it's running right now still, so it might actually have another word.
Right.
But at times I may say, hey, what were the words that we've had since I asked you last? So
Okay. All right.
So, what other job did you have other than delivering milk?
Good.
What was your job if you did not deliver milk? What was your occupation?
let's get it back because it's still running. So we missed lid. What were the bottles made out of? There was a lid there. And weren't those like very specific lids? Weren't they like spring loaded?
Right.
Something like that,
Something
yeah.
like,
I wasn't asking as if you were there. I'm sorry.
other-
That's okay. No. I would,
That's funny. A youngster. What other occupation did you have? Or was there something else that you wanted to do? Was there anything else that you wish that you could have done with your life?
So when I pulled this out, it was at 1, and now it's down to 0 as far as the EMF goes. I'm going to turn off the ambient temperature just so all the energy, the battery energy goes to the EMF.
right.
Did you have a family? No. What were your children's names? What were your children's names? Or what is your name?
More energy coming through. Maybe it's louder.
So at the next stop, we'll definitely get a little bit more volume, but you're getting the gist of like the questioning and whatnot. So let's go teach you guys some real history.
Okay.
Let's go learn about your own.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a great practice area.
Okay.
I'm immune to that smell now. I don't smell it at all. I'm sure summertime heat, it'll be a lot different. But
Oh yeah.
I work year round, and I'm here 6 nights a week.
Well,
At a time.
I'm from Texas, so you know.
Yeah. coming from, because I need to know where my people coming from, so that way I know next year where to advertise.
Sure.
So,
We're here for my niece's wedding, which is tomorrow.
oh, that's right. You did say you were here for a wedding.
Yep.
Funny is, I think I have a wedding group tomorrow.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I got right before I left the house, I had a group of 8 come through. I'm like, that's got to be a wedding. It's got to
Awesome,
be.
yeah.
And when it's a female coming through, it's going to be the bridal party. They're going to be drunk.
Yeah,
They're gonna be
that's what I was thinking.
I
It
know.
happened
He
every
didn't let me
time.
go to the bar before he came, so that's right. And they would be what, Lord, anyway,
What does it say?
Lord,
Oh.
talking about the weddings and
Yeah.
whatnot, maybe. I don't know.
maybe.
We'll see. Well,
Possibly. I
again,
don't know.
sometimes things come. You might get chapel, you might get
Yeah.
bride. You know, we were
Sure.
just talking
Yeah.
about all
Sure.
those things. You might even get niece
Yeah.
come up. You just say you're for your niece's wedding,
Yeah.
right?
Does it say the other, where's the,
Don't touch. No,
oh, where's the
you haven't been trained.
I just
No.
look at the calendar and see what the words again. Lord,
Just
okay.
living Lord.
Living Lord. Okay. Well, you know. Living
Yeah.
Lord. There you go.
So when the list gets longer, yeah, you hit the circle back.
Okay, just
When it gets longer, you can scroll through it, which
Okay.
is really nice. So again, welcome to another beautiful parking lot.
All right.
So if you guys don't know where to park, by the time we're done with this, I don't know what to tell you. This is a place you don't want to park because they charge you like $20 for 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, so this place used to be where the Charles and Eliza Pinckney mansion sat.
Okay.
Okay.
So the mansion sat in the front of this lot, facing East Bay Street, very prominent home. Eliza's garden was lined up with that left tree and came all the way across, and we're standing where the servant quarters would have been. So
Yeah.
who the hell were Charles and Eliza Pinckney? They had a son named Charles, they had a nephew named Charles. The son and the nephew were signers of the Constitution for South
Yes,
Carolina.
I remember that. Yeah.
So, look at that. We got somebody that actually
I'm
heard of the
I'm a
name.
history freak.
Good.
He's history. I'm women's history, so women's studies, so it's okay.
Oh,
That
well,
was
in March rather, Women's History Month, I was really, all my advertising was based on this story.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, you're going to find throughout the night, I talk mainly of women of
Right.
Charleston because nobody else does. I won't say nobody, but it's
Right.
something I prominently do.
Right.
But anyway, so I'm not a big person on politics, so we're going to move on to Eliza. Just
advice.
because.
Okay. got it. Yeah.
Anyway.
Eliza married Charles at a very young age.
Okay.
I won't tell you how young. It'd be young according to our standards, not
Right.
hers.
Right.
And Charles was much older than her. I'm not giving you what those numbers are in case you want to ask.
Understood.
So this is your intermediate level, so to
Right.
speak.
Okay.
So she married Charles because her father over in England thought he was dying, and he wanted all of his kids home so he could see him one last time.
Okay.
Eliza didn't believe him. She didn't think he was going yet, so she got married, and it didn't give her citizenship. It just said, hey, Dad, I'm not going anywhere. This was colonial times.
Right.
There's no such thing as citizenship yet.
Right.
So a lot of people have tried to dodge me out on that. I'm like, come on. I just said it was like 1740s, you know.
Oh,
But
right.
anyway,
Close.
yeah. But at any rate, so she got married. Dad gets better. She was right. So Dad starts sending over gifts like he normally does, but these were a little bit more extravagant because she just got married. He wanted to give her some wedding gifts. Well, I told you her garden was here. She was a botanist. She loved to experiment with different types of plants. So also keep in mind that the family was here at one point in time and left Eliza behind to maintain the whole plantation that they had. So she was very familiar with plantations and
Sure.
plant life and,
Sure.
and all of that. One of the plants that he sent over was indigo. So it's a plant that makes blue dye, it makes blue jeans blue. That's
Right.
usually the explanation I give my youngsters because
Right.
they don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Yep.
But with that being said, indigo was already here. The Gullah culture brought it over, which was basically where our slave trade was.
Right.
So she learned from her servants and slaves, from the plantation and her home, how to keep this plant cultivated in our weird temperatures. Obviously, it doesn't stay warm here all the time.
Mhm.
So she learned from her, experimented with it right where we're standing, and then ended up moving it over to Snee Farm in Mount Pleasant, which was a property that the family already owned. She moved it over there, and it became a huge cash crop because it was perfect timing. Rice plantation's going downhill.
Right.
So she calls Dad up, not literally, but she says, hey, Dad, I need some contacts overseas. This is going to be a big thing. It's already expensive over there. We can make a lot of money. She starts selling it. Boom. We have a businesswoman in the mid-1700s selling indigo.
Wow.
So, and if you don't know a whole lot about indigo, kind of think of our own Civil War. Obviously, it's about 100 years later, but obviously the Union wore blue,
Right.
and we wore gray down here.
Right.
gray is just less indigo.
Right.
So they both were wearing a product of her plantation.
Wow.
So I'm just skimming the top of the things that Eliza's done, just so that we can play with the tools and whatnot. But there's a couple of weird facts about Eliza that we can get into on the spirit boxes. She was the second wife named Eliza from Charles. Yeah. So he really screwed that one up.
Yeah.
So, and they both go by their maiden name. I know I don't have to explain what that is to you guys.
Right.
Sorry, when I see kids, like I have this, because they're going, what was your middle name? I'm like, Maiden name. And they both start with the letter L. So that's all I'll give you. So it's always interesting to see which Eliza wants to come through. More prominently than not, it's the one that planted the indigo. You can ask what happened to the mansion. It's obviously not here anymore. You can ask anything you want to about Eliza's death. So she's pretty open about that, including questions like, how old were you, what did you die from, where did you die, where are you buried, and which U.S. president was a pallbearer at your funeral.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most people go after that question first, and that's usually a pretty big one. You can ask a few questions around the kids, just don't prod. There was a tragedy there, and if we start poking too hard, all activity stops. And throughout the rest of the night. It's the craziest thing. Like, I don't get anything the rest of the night. It's like she tells all the other ghosts, don't talk to Nick and his group tonight.
Wow.
They're asking about so-and-so.
So was her husband, Pinckney, if he was a signer of the Declaration, was he representative from South Carolina for the...
That would have been the son.
The son. Okay,
the son was the signer.
Okay.
The son and the nephew. So they were...
Okay.
And the son was also a governor.
Okay.
But I will tell you, the husband was part of all of the political parties. So all of those, when Republicans and all of that stuff was coming about, like, he was definitely involved.
Right.
So he was actually a Jeffersonian Republican.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
There was all of that kind of goes back and forth. And these are weird facts that I learned through my tours.
Right.
You can read about Eliza Pinckney and her indigo all day long,
right.
but all of these weird little things, like that's got to come through spirit boxes, and that's me researching what does this word mean.
Right.
You know, why is this tied to the Pinckney Mansion site? There's one other. We did maiden names, all of her death stuff. I think that about covers it. You can ask birthday, marriage dates, like all of those things to see what's actually going to come through. Numbers never lie, so I always say just like the Jersey number. If I can match that up with a name, then we're golden. If you say, "Hey Eliza, when's your birthday?" and you get a number, and I can match it, we're golden.
That's
like
awesome.
That's pretty specific detail.
Sure.
So we're going to probably spend a good. I mean, we're actually way early because I didn't have to do a full introduction with 10 people.
Right.
So I mean, we could spend normally about 10 minutes here, but I mean, we can go to 20 if the activity is high.
Sure.
I'm definitely going to play with the REM pod in here and kind of separate from you guys, so that way you guys can experiment. I do want to show you some evidence before and we are going to stay within the confines of the lot.
Okay.
So one thing I'll tell you is people get a little weird about video cameras in their car. So if somebody's coming up to their vehicle, you're just holding a cell phone.
Okay.
You're not actually videotaping.
Got it.
Even though if I was a car thief, that would be my first tool.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can tell how long the cars have been here.
Oh, yeah. When was the mansion torn down? What year? And replaced?
It actually was no longer in existence in 1861.
Okay. After the Confederacy started.
Yep.
Okay.
It's up to you to find out how. I gave you one clue.
I can do it.
Without Googling. I find that teenagers love to, like, when I separate them, they're like cheating. I'm like, the teacher's coming, put it away.
Exactly. Have you ever investigated Fort Sumter?
I have.
I bet that's interesting.
I haven't gone through it yet. So when I do my investigations, all of that, like, I'm getting ready to go on vacation. I'm going up north to see my in-laws. And I already have a few locations I'm going to go to. But for example, Fort Sumter, it was cold because it was in January.
Right.
So that was sitting in a coat pocket right here with just the camera sticking out. So it was kind of like a GoPro,
right.
First-hand view. The red spirit box was in my pocket on mute. I just reviewed it later. The blue spirit box was running on my phone. I had an EMF meter in my pocket from time to time.
Right.
I just haven't been able to go through it all yet. All of my investigations are in a podcast, which is how all of this started. When I was working with that psychic and all of that stuff. But yeah, I've done Fort Sumter. It's just sitting. I have to go through it. This is that wall up there in the corner, just so you guys know what you're looking at.
Okay.
Let me start it over because you need a point of reference. There's going to be two living people walking past the wall. Do you see their orange heads?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go fast forward a little bit. You're going to see two black heads walking by here shortly. Right about there.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
So what happened that particular night, this was last summer, and it's still great evidence. They called me up there. I had everybody separated. They said, Nick, we think we saw some shadows. I'm like, okay, let me come up here and debunk some things. Because, I mean, it was a pretty busy night. There was a little lamppost that they could have saw some reflection off of. And then I'm like, I looked at it the next morning is when I caught that. And then a few months after that, I'm showing the evidence. And the gentleman I'm talking to is a firefighter. He uses that thing on his job. He said, can you send me that video? I want to look at this with the guys. I'm like, yeah, no problem. So he emails me back the next day, and he's going with it. Like, we're literally on Zoom, frame by frame, going through this thing. He's like, 2 heads and 2 heads. You could see him go past the pole. He's like, and we even analyzed it when we were there. If it was a vehicle, it's too far away. It's got to be on the far lane going down the street. Even a tall vehicle going by isn't going to make 2 circular pieces side by side.
There's no way.
So he's like, you have legitimate stuff there. We just wanted to kind of solidify that for you. I'm like, well, that's amazing. I appreciate it. I have other pieces, I just haven't clipped them out yet. Some of them are like just a blue blob just kind of hanging out, and all of a sudden it moves like off of somebody. It should have been obviously red, orange, and yellow. But enough about stuff I've already done. Let's catch some more.
Okay.
So you guys explore. I'm trying to think of which direction I want to go to. I'm probably gonna go up to that corner over there with the REM pod and see what I can get.
Okay. I'll keep it on you in case you get cold spots.
I'll be good.
I don't have a reference though.
So, Eliza. Yes, you don't have the light on me. So, Eliza, tell me, what was your middle name? What was your middle name? And who was it that was the pallbearer at the funeral? I understand there was a president. Which president was it? That was a president. That's very impressive. Daughter's calling. Tell her no. But I understand that you had one daughter, and I just wanted to say that I understand something happened, and I'm very sorry about that. And I'm not going to ask or pry into your business, but I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry. I'm a mom myself. But let's see. I was trying to think. What year were you born? Oh, I heard that you were a young bride. My mom was actually a young bride. She got married when she was 14. How old were you when you first were married? How old were you when you first were married? I was 18 when I got married, which I guess is young by today's standards. That we've been married quite a while, so I guess people, may think it's young, but I understand you had a wonderful marriage, so I was just curious how old you were and what year it was when you got married. Also, I was told that you really enjoy planting things in your garden, and I too love flowers. I love planting things and watching them grow. And what was your favorite kind of plant or flower that you grew? Like to grow, just for your pleasure. I know that indigo is your business, but is there something that you liked to grow just for the pleasure of it because it was beautiful? Also, I have to tell you that your time that you were living, and you have any tips for women now who might want to start their own business? What was it that happened in the attic? It was a word that I received, and I was wondering if there was something that happened in the attic.
Call Brian.
I also was wondering if there was anything, did you have, or what happened in the flood that you experienced? I believe there was something that happened with the flood. What was it that happened with the flood? Was there a year that you had a bad flood? Or a month? Where you had difficulties with the flood?
Hey, ask her how the trip over the ocean, how was the ocean trip that
Oh
she
yeah,
came over?
whenever you would go over to England, wasn't it?
It was England,
How
yeah.
was your trip? We just recently went over, but we flew in an airplane where we don't have to go on the water. The airplane goes through the air. And but how was the journey? Did you have any difficulties, or what were the difficulties with a boat trip that was that long? Were there difficulties with it being that long of a trip? I heard the word temptation. Was there a problem with temptations of that sort?
Giving you guys a narrative of what I'm seeing when I'm going through the smell meter. I did get a couple of things coming close to the antenna, but I did widen it pretty. I opened it way up.
Okay.
So it's sitting at a 3 right now. So it takes something probably about that wide around it to get close to it. Before I had it pretty big.
Okay.
So, but I did get some spikes all the way up to like 10 and 11
Wow.
on the. But as you can see, I pulled this one out.
Mhm.
Like that is sitting at about a 15 right there.
Mhm.
This all the way to the end is 25.
Wow.
So this is a pretty active spot with this very sensitive K2. It doesn't always give me, you can see it's at 0 right now, and I'm getting this crazy reading out of this one. This one measures all 3 different types of electromagnetic fields. This one literally only measures,
Heat.
no,
Oh,
this is where the
Right.
electromagnetic fields would be anything electrical.
right. Okay.
So,
got it. Yeah. Okay.
This is going to measure anything that's not man-made.
Okay.
So when I look for see rhythms and patterns out of this, I can
Right.
see it's probably from a parking meter. Somebody's cell phone's too close, which is literally like right next to it.
Right.
That's how close it would have to be.
Right.
But like this
Right.
at a 0 and then spiking up to 0.8, then 0.4,
Right.
and then 0.8, 0.4. That's a pattern. So I'll kind of like, all right, what's nearby that could be influencing that?
Got it. Like
Any-
power lines,
Right.
anything like that. Yeah. Got it.
What are we getting out of your spirit boxes?
The words were.
Here, I'll take your
Well, I had
phone.
asked a minute ago. I was asking about the trip over the ocean to oops, into drama. The trip over the ocean to back to England, what if there are hardships,
Mm-hmm.
and the word temptation came out through the other one.
Oh.
And so when I said that, the word religion came up. So I may have offended. I don't know, but anyway.
She was religious.
Yes. So anyway, and then I don't know what else. Really, there hasn't been too many other words coming up there since I think the word. Whenever we first started, it was the word light, and then the word dig came up, and that's really
Well,
about
those
all.
are both relevant.
Right.
So
Because she
Dig
was
religion.
She was a farmer. She
Right.
was a-
Well, that's true. I was asking
A lot
about
of
her
it's the
garden.
garden.
I was
Yeah.
asking about the garden and her flowers, the ones that she
in
liked.
relation to the light,
Right.
I'm going to actually turn this
Yeah.
down a little bit.
Yeah, I was-
So the light behind you that's blinking,
Right.
it doesn't always blink. I didn't mention it tonight because it wasn't blinking when we got here.
Yeah.
Now, normally,
Huh.
this EMF will go right in sync with the pulses that you see on that light. You can videotape it, and the pulses here will go up there about 2 frames later.
Right.
So, again, I didn't mention the light, but Eliza's telling me to mention the damn light.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I was going to say, for some reason, I noticed the light that it was kind of going with the beat of the whatever.
Right.
I did notice that earlier.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, it's not always blinking, and it is kind of some people look at that as a stretch, but to
Yeah.
me, that's almost my barometer of how much activity we're going to get.
Sure. Sure. Because you think, I mean, I'm just a layman's term. You think that the entity is
Drawing
using
energy.
energy,
Right,
and it takes a lot of energy to come forward.
right. And not
Okay.
to mention, notice that the light over there is not blinking. This one here is just weaker.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just, it can be influenced a lot harder than the other light that obviously has a very strong light bulb in it.
Yeah.
There are 2 different kinds of light bulbs. You can see them from here.
Right.
One's a halogen, and one is like an energy friendly.
Yeah.
So again, you can see where my
Wow.
mentality comes from.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because there's some nights I walk in here and that light's not even on, and I get nothing out of this place. It doesn't happen often because this is like the grand finale for me if I were to have one. But this is probably my most active location.
Wow. You can definitely blinking. It's been blinking for a while.
Yeah. And again, tomorrow night it might not even be blinking at all, or it might just be flickering, brrr, like
Sure.
super fast.
Right. You just never know.
Anything weird on your end?
Nope. No, I think
Again, it's just nice to have at the ready.
Yep. Just consistent. I see the blue dropping down because that's part of her dress, right?
Right.
The stay of the body and it's good to the Okay.
Right.
That's all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The flow of her dress is going to obviously take off the cooler air.
Right. Right. Right.
So I'm not doing anything.
And I certainly do want to apologize. I didn't mean to offend you with the question about the trip across to England. If I did, I certainly apologize if I offended you. But let's see. Well, like I said, lots of respect for the type of woman that you were, that you started your own company. Because it's unheard of at that time for a woman to have a company. What was it that your father or your mother taught you that let you realize that you could run your own company, where most women, I think, at that time didn't? How old are you right now? How old are you right now? I'm 56. 56, and I was just curious how old you were. Which I suppose is another deep question. So, I apologize again. husband just pulled up a picture of you, and I was just noticing the beautiful color of your hair. What color would you call that? What color would you call your hair? How are your businesses affected after the end of the war? And how was it, what happened to the house? How was it destroyed? I understand that in 1861 it no longer existed. How was it destroyed? I'm sure it was gorgeous. But how was it destroyed? How was your house destroyed? It's just gorgeous. I'm so glad that you
What was the
know
name
these
of her
things.
daughter?
Oh, what
Born in
was your,
1748.
oh, what was your daughter's name?
Born in 1748.
What was your brother's name? What year was she born? Our daughter was born. Our daughter's name is actually named after the country. The British father was from Great Britain or England, but she, her name is, like I said, Britain, and she was born in 1986. So what is your daughter's name, and what year was she born? And where was she born? Because that was a lot of questions, so maybe I'll ask them one at a time. What is your daughter's name? Can you tell me her name, please? Can you tell me your daughter's name? And where was she born? And what year was she born in? What year?
Obviously, I had something going on back there. What's that? This went all the way up to 21, and then I
Wow.
started getting a spike, like all through that, and then it just stayed steady. And I said, make it go to the next light because it only went to the next one.
Uh-huh.
Do you like
I
it
said,
when
make it
we're
go to
talking
blue,
about your daughter?
and then it stopped.
Is that whenever
I see.
you
So it was kind of a okay.
like it whenever
It's good though.
Yeah, definitely good. I mean, but what's funny is a lot of times, like through the spirit boxes, my name pops up. So I'm here every night. So
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
like they don't know me. You know what I mean? So it happens often.
And she's been asking all kinds of questions. It's like, I think she's, I got on our little website on my phone and got some background information, got some pictures of her, and she was asking her what color her hair was,
Okay.
and it was a beautiful food dress.
It's okay. Tap around it. Bring it back. All right, so let's get you guys the answers to at least the stuff that I can answer for you, because if you went rogue and started
Okay.
asking your own questions,
Oh.
which is, I'm guessing you did.
Oh.
No, that's perfectly fine. I love when people do that. You don't just tell you, do what the teacher told you to do. So let's start with the question.
I
well,
am
let's,
the teacher.
She's a teacher. We're both teachers.
That's right.
What words do you have? Let's start there.
Still, we actually don't have any more since then. It's still the same one shop.
Oh.
Whenever we were talking about the light going on, I guess by that little whatever store shop, whatever it is, that came up, but that was it.
Okay.
But nothing
Nothing
else
else?
came up. No.
You got the word lily. Were you asking anything about
Oh,
plants?
I was. Oh, let's see. Oh, Lily. I did. Yes, we were talking about that. But that was really more around. Well, I guess we were. We were talking about plants. It may have been whenever you were telling me more about it, and when you were talking about our plants, because you were saying that's when you were telling us about her plants and everything, and her flowers and things, questions I might ask, and you're saying because I really didn't know these, because I had to go and I had to look things up, and so that's when you're
Sure.
talking about looking things up.
I also
like
see
that.
eggs on
Right.
there. Now keep in mind, we're still next to the red barn.
Right.
With the horses that deliver milk
Right.
and eggs.
Right.
So I'm going to take that one as well. Like, that's
Right.
pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and circle back just to see if anything popped up while we were sitting here chatting. All right, so Eliza died at the age of 70 in 1793.
Wow.
So that's a pretty long age to be
That
living
is.
till.
That
And
is.
she died of breast cancer that we know of. We're going based on her medical records.
Wow.
Obviously, there was no such thing as cancer yet that we knew
Right.
of. So
Right.
but that was in Philadelphia. She was up there for treatments.
Okay,
So if you heard
okay.
anything related to doctors, like seek medical care, talk to your doctor. We get that all the time here too. With that being said, when she died up in Philadelphia, that's also where she's buried.
Oh, okay.
So if that kind of answers the question why we don't visit cemeteries on my Stories in the Cemetery tour, you're not going to hang out where you're buried at. You're going to go to places you love.
Of course, of course.
So that's why we come to locations like this. The president, any guesses? Did we get anything?
She died in what year?
1793.
No, not for many.
I'm guessing. I want to say Washington. It seems too obvious. Adams.
It was Washington.
It was Washington.
It was.
Wow.
So I've had the name George Washington show up here several times. I've had, now keep in mind your spirit box is slowed down, so it's going to pick up words before and after.
Right.
I've had Denzel Washington show up. So again, who is the president? Denzel Washington. That's not true.
Not exactly.
It is Washington. I don't need the Denzel part.
Right.
But the words apple show up here. Would, because
Right.
obviously
Wow.
he has
Sure.
words.
Of course. Of course.
I've had Martha show up here before.
Right.
Okay.
So anything relating to Washington is usually something I'll take. That's what I'm looking for, is all those little clues.
I think that's about the time where it was like it has illustrate and or divide.
Illustrated what?
Illustrate and divide.
Divide wouldn't have been until the Civil War, which was obviously
Yeah,
long
right.
after that.
But we were looking at a painting of her. I was showing you a painting.
Okay, so the illustration makes sense. I don't have
Possibly.
an actual photograph. If you have the with her hair all like done
Oh,
up.
I did ask her about. I said my husband just showed me a picture of you.
What color was
And-
your hair?
That's
Yeah.
right, and I was because I was asking what I said. So that your hair's really pretty. What color is it anyway?
I told you that the house was no longer here in 1861. That was from the Great Fire of 1861. So whenever you take a tour in Charleston, we all talk about great fires. Just because there's been dozens of them, we name them after
Right.
the year.
Right.
This one happened to go from Peninsula Coast to Peninsula Coast this way, so the house was literally just in the way. Unfortunately, the only photos we have of the mansion that was here, Mateo, that showed up the other night too. I want to say that's part of the 80%.
Okay.
So, now, granted, I will tell you that she was born in Antigua, even though she lived in England.
Oh, okay.
So, obviously, Antigua being of Spanish descent. So, again, Mateo may have been somebody in the household.
I see.
I can't prove it, so I'm not going to highlight it for you guys tomorrow.
Right.
But it's a possibility.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot of mention of their servants and slaves that they owned. There's a couple of mentions in Eliza's books and letters, but not a whole lot that I can say, okay, here's her 300 slaves that she owned. It might be a name here and there.
Right.
Was there anything about a flood or that
No
had
floods.
flood or attic?
But it's Charleston. We flood pretty much every
Yeah,
week.
I mean, if there's anything right. I'm sure.
Got it.
We are outside of the original Charlestown walls too, so we're going to actually
Okay.
go through I'll point those stuff, where those things are as we walk.
Right.
The maiden names, the Eliza Lucas Pinckney
Yes.
was the name of the one for Indigo, and then the insignificant first wife was Eliza Lamb Pinckney. So Lamb and Lucas were the
Lamb
names
and
for
Lucas, okay.
there. Let's see, Eliza was 22 when she married Charles, who was 45. So she was born on December 28th and died May 25th, I believe. So, I'm trying to think. So all of these numbers pop up in some way, shape, or form normally. It just depends. So it might be a phone number coming through for a business commercial, and it might say 9701, and I have 70 in there. That's when she died. So that's where I'm looking at those kind of
Got it.
things.
So just kind of pull it apart a little bit.
It's a hidden encrypted message.
Sure. Sure.
So where we're going to go from here is we're actually going to walk up to... Oh, I'm sorry. What other questions were you asking? Maybe I can...
Oh no, that was all. That was all.
Oh, you had extra. I know you.
No, I didn't. I didn't actually. I was just thinking. No.
I was asking about the trip. How was the trip over? And that's when we got the Temptation or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like, because I know the ship rides were horrendous, from England and in America, especially for the Revolutionary War. And I was like, was there hardships? Did they lose anybody? Something like that. Was it a pleasant trip, that kind of thing?
She would have been, when she came over, I want to say like 11 or 12 when she came to America.
Wow.
And then by the time she was 15 was when the father had to go back because one of the sons was being enlisted in something with the British forces.
Right.
So I don't know specifically which.
Right.
He went back because the son had to go to college and all these other things and left her behind to run the plantation at the age of 15.
Wow.
Craziness.
So they all came over as a family.
Yeah.
I see.
Correct.
And her mother was, who was her mother again? Eliza's?
That's a good question. I don't think I know that. No,
I don't.
The father's name, ironically, his name was George Lucas. So that's
Okay.
where Eliza Lucas Bingham.
I bet the kids knew that one. They're like, oh yeah, I know that one.
Was there anyone named Peter anywhere?
No.
That just wasn't something that
His
popped
sons'
up.
names were Charles, obviously, Thomas, George, and Harriet. So there's another George. So there's 3 Georges I just mentioned: Washington, the father, and the son. So usually I wait for another clue, like would Apple president first, anything like that to relate to whichever one. Now the son George was the one that passed away as an infant. We don't know if the baby was days or week old because the death month is the same on the headstone.
Right.
And that's what I say, don't poke around with that unless she says baby or anything like that, because she did lose an infant.
Right.
And it says week. So the baby was probably around a week old.
Wow.
So I'm guessing.
That's
When
W-E-E-K?
it was struck.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That is
Isn't that
interesting.
how they used to say that it was struck? I mean, that's the
With what?
verbiage that they used to, whenever someone felt ill, they would say they were struck with the illness.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a
Back then.
verbiage.
Struck illness.
Right.
It's true.
But she was also very British. So some of the EVPs that I have that are disembodied, not from the radio stations, like I have just a few months ago, Please Leave Us Alone. That came up, which is kind of like, I came back the next night after I caught it, and I'm like, Eliza and Charles, I'm not going to leave you alone. You guys keep giving me info. I want to learn more about you. Like, I kind of made my amends with them.
Yeah.
But other ones were Baked Beans Breakfast. Came through on a reverse spirit box. Have you ever seen a reverse spirit box? So reverse spirit box, just behind that is that it's a recording, and it's basically a man and a woman saying random words, and then they flip the audio backwards. You have to imagine in my occupation, because this is what I do for a living, I can flip it forwards. So that's how I found out what it actually was.
I see.
So when it's running backwards in real time, and you can hear words in there that are clear as day, that are not the gibberish of it's being spun backwards, and it said Baked Beans Breakfast. Now there was a full sentence there. The red spirit box said, I'll fix you. Then I had Baked Beans Breakfast on my reverse spirit box, and then your word list gave me the word tea. All within 3 minutes of each other.
Wow.
I'll fix you Baked Beans Breakfast and tea. And at the time, I had no idea what the hell Baked Beans Breakfast was. I was just excited I heard something.
Right.
Sure.
One of my guests told me, that's a breakfast over in the UK. I'm
Sure.
like, really?
Yeah, it is.
So I had no idea. So again, this is how I learn stuff on here.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's
Very
so much
cool.
that comes out of these tours. And you look at it as a collective, and there's a ton. Night after night, it might seem like, oh, we had 5 really good, strong pieces, but then you put 5 pieces.
Right.
And I could write a book on each one of these spots we're going to go to.
Absolutely.
I probably
Absolutely.
will when I'm done with this stupid master's degree of mine. I got 2.5 more months to go, and I'm done.
And what is it in?
This one is in creative writing.
This one is?
Oh, wow.
So I have a bachelor's in English, and then I have a bachelor's in journalism and mass communication. So I can write fiction and non, which is where the blog and the books come from, because I have fiction and non. And then my master's in creative writing, and I thought about going back in for my PhD, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm 42. I don't want to do any more education. I'd rather do it in the field. I want to get back to writing full time, all of these things. And I had a regular job.
Have you published?
Oh, yeah. I have 7 books published.
Oh.
Wow, you should send us a list or send us.
They're on my website. You guys
Awesome.
I'll see that tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
And how long are you guys in town?
Till Sunday.
Yeah, we're going to the
Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. For a couple of days after the wedding, but then
I
we'll
have
be leaving
one
Sunday.
local bookstore that they're a cute little shop up in Somerville.
Okay.
And I do signings up there for them.
Oh,
and whatever.
awesome.
But that's like the only store, because honestly, I do a lot of hand selling through the tours.
Sure.
My stock is really low because I just did a trade show 2 weeks ago and I'm waiting on my next shipment.
Right.
But like at the end of the tour, folks come up, do you have books with you? I'm like, yeah, they're in my trunk. You just got to come to my garage. I sell books out of my trunk. I do more hand selling than I do on Amazon. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
sure.
So, it's just, that's another stream of income for me because I had a real job, like I said, and I walked away. Like, I literally 6-figure income, doing really well for myself.
Wow.
And I just walked away.
You have to do what you want to do. Yeah, you have to do what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
And like my wife, like every night, I always text her when I get down here, and she always says, "Have fun. This is what you wanted."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's, not to mention I get to hang out with people from all over.
Right.
Sure.
And you guys always have stories, but
Right.
I'm literally teaching people what I love to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm not teaching you how to write books,
Yeah.
but
But was there one thing, like, they, all the, Zach Bagans and whoever, they all had that one thing in their childhood that they just could not explain, and that's why they got interested in doing this. Was there one thing for you?
Or that you feel
I guess it was.
You don't
I'm
have
kind of-
always sharing, always, because I have experiences from childhood, like 5, 6 years old. I used to always see things when I was a kid, but
Okay.
being raised Orthodox, I wasn't allowed to talk about it.
Okay.
So as I got older, I started looking into tarot cards and pagan and witchery and that kind of stuff. As I'm a
Oh,
teenager,
sure, I got you.
my mom
Yeah.
got a hold of my stuff, and she took me to Bubba's house, and it was the family secret was revealed that my grandmother knew how to read playing cards, which is an old gypsy style.
Oh,
Because
wow.
that's what original playing cards were meant for, was to read as
Sure.
fortune telling.
I love that to
Yes.
Bubba's house.
Bubba.
So
Okay, go ahead.
again, I mean, I'm
love that.
Ukrainian, so
Right.
I was raised Orthodox. We didn't have
Okay.
grandma. We had Bubba and Gigi.
Bubba, yeah.
Okay.
So and it was just me and Bubba in the kitchen. She showed me how all of these cards work, and
Right.
kind of like when she passed, I was I don't know 2021. I felt the need to look into it further. Actually, it's probably a little bit more than that. But there's a lot to playing cards. I actually have the 10 of clubs tattooed on me because that's my birth card.
Okay.
And that, ironically, my ex-wife, that was her birth card, because each card, remember, there's only 52 cards in a deck, 365 days a year. Each card has anywhere between 4 to 7 birthdays attached to it. So, ironically, even though our birthdays are 3 months apart, we share the same card. So we thought, oh, it's destiny.
Yeah.
I ended up leaving her.
Not so much.
Got a new wife. But at the same token, I know, my grandmother's card is probably going to go on the inside of my arm because she's the one who taught me
I see.
how to get into this.
I see.
But yeah, I still wasn't allowed to talk about it, but it was nice to be included in what is actually out there.
Did they try to reach out and communicate to you anyway? And they tried to give you messages?
As far as my grandparents?
No, the spirits that you saw when you were a kid.
Not necessarily, and I used to see darker things, which was the problem. I
Oh.
was seeing a lot of Grim Reaper type things.
Oh, wow.
So I'm 7, 8 years old, not knowing what any of this stuff means.
That would be very
Well,
scary.
it wasn't even scary. It was more of it was very, what's the term I'm looking for? It was a serene thing. It was very serene. I was already a big reader, as a kid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess what we said.
This is therapist.
Oh,
Sense of humor.
yeah. Thank you.
I'd be interested to see what else came up in that list.
Yeah.
What's recording while we're not listening
Yeah.
to it. But it's just, I've always saw those types of things. And I do things that are non-electronics too. Like I have a
Sure.
spirit board. I just bought a pendulum divination board, which is basically the swinging pendulum. But I bought a new board because I haven't had one. Normally I made them myself. I just don't know where they all are. They're probably with
Right.
the ex-wife somewhere. But I bought a new one that was already pre-made, and I can't wait to use it. I just haven't yet. But I got some investigations coming. I got this book to finish for school.
Right.
So end of summertime is going to be party time for me because I'm releasing a new book and I got to start working on the podcast again. I got a co-host now, so I'm getting her trained
Awesome.
to be comfortable with the microphone and
Sure.
talk about these locations.
Sure.
Make sure you send us all that information.
Absolutely.
Because I love
All
that.
at the top of the data.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's
good.
awesome.
Everybody asks me about this stuff, so I was
Sure.
like, how many questions can I answer?
Yeah.
Right.
Before they get to their data. So books, podcasts,
Yeah.
where to leave reviews, all of
Right.
all of that stuff. And
Right.
even some of the stuff we're doing now, it might be a backlink to one of the articles I wrote about one of these locations.
Right.
So, but it just has all the references at the bottom, so
Right.
I'm allowed to do that. So again, there's a ton of info when you
Well,
guys
the
are
first
done.
the first thing that people see on this TV and they say, "Is this really real?" I mean,
Right.
are they playing the production value so they can keep on the air and they can pay
Right.
their people that possibly are actors along with them?
Well, especially when he said that, what they portray as being one
Yeah.
evening is
Yeah.
really weird.
Yeah.
So.
And we get those guys through here. This is Charleston.
Right.
So, again, it's one of those, we see them for a couple of days and they might shut down the old Provost dungeon for a few days, and it's taken at least 3 to 4 days to get the activity that they need.
Right.
You might hear that they're coming to town for the USS Yorktown. Now Grant Wilson from the TAPS team, original
Right.
TAPS team,
Right.
he's pretty legit. The only
Yeah.
thing I disagree with him is that he only uses one device at a time.
Right.
So he only likes to experiment with one thing.
Yeah.
My method is throw everything you got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you're only in that location once, especially if you're a traveling investigator like him.
Right.
I know he's got a team that they're all doing their separate things, but
Right.
literally throw everything out there. He does one device at a time, and that's the
Right.
only thing that I disagree with on his part.
Right.
But that production piece, yeah, it's about the ratings. It's commercial. It's television. You know, it's how many YouTube views can you get?
You can tell.
Yeah, and I mean don't get me wrong. I'm sure some of the things that Zach did at the very beginning with Ann and Nick,
Yeah.
or Aaron and Nick,
Oh yeah.
like that stuff was legit.
I
The
remember.
lockdowns, like that was
Yeah.
really cool. You know, his gimmick was he had one camera,
Right.
one tech guy, and him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just-
Exactly.
Yeah, it was really kind of like the Ghost Hunters is where we really started off. I don't know why Mike did. I mean, yeah, like Nick was. He's funny. I mean, it's just, he's funny. He's
Yeah.
he's like
We all make fun of
yeah.
him. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
The Ghost Adventures. I think
Yeah.
what they kind of skewed off
Yeah.
is that he got into like so much, like
Yeah.
not trying to communicate to like harass them, try to get them
Right.
to act out and try to get them.
Yeah.
Antagonize.
Exactly. And I said, why would he do that? You know?
Yeah, I mean,
So-
for what I do here, and everybody has watched some kind of Ghost Hunter show of some
Yeah,
sort.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
if they've caught something on YouTube, even the young teenage kids, I mean,
Right.
even 7 to 13,
Right.
like they've seen something.
Right.
So when I start going through this, and I'm like, guys, this is really about the history. How much do you know? How much do you not know?
That's exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and it's about the clues. It's about trying to, communicate.
Yeah.
Not everything on the other side is malevolent.
No.
Like,
no.
and that's, Eliza Pinckney, for God's sake, come
Right,
on.
yeah.
Is she really going to be coming at me? I mean,
Right.
I mean, did I get the annoyed, please leave us alone?
Yeah.
It's probably from Charles.
Right.
It was a male voice.
Sure.
It was disembodied.
Right.
And the reason why I know it's disembodied, by the way,
Mhm.
it went over 11 different radio stations. So you have to imagine, with all of the clicking through
Oh,
there, I
right.
could see the pulses in the
Absolutely.
audio. So I
Absolutely.
slow it down. I count them over.
Right.
Where did this come from?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of analyzing that one little 2 seconds thing of
I firmly believe that when you see residual images, residual visions, that is just like a movie playing over and over and over
A
every
lot of that
day.
is.
Because it's either some traumatic event or something like somebody walking the same way every day that they did their entire lives, and you just like seeing a movie, just like click and play and
There
do it
was a
again and again
location
and
that I
again.
used to have at the very end, and we're actually going to skip Lodge Alley. It's not a very active spot.
Okay.
So we're going to actually go to
Okay.
a more active spot. But the one place I took people was because it was residual. The guy hung himself there.
Oh wow.
So again, it's on the second story.
Mhm.
The online stories say third, but we've gotten confirmation that it's the second over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And it was actually part of the reason why I wanted the thermal imaging camera until I learned it can't see through glass. So it's an older building, it's being renovated, so
I see.
it kind of stirred up some activity, and I'm like, let's see if we can actually get something out of this guy. And his name is leaving me, so I apologize, because I haven't told the story in months. But it was one of those things I knew I was going to be able to catch something because it's a residual spirit.
Right.
You know, if you're a suicide,
Sure.
obviously you're just reliving that moment,
and
unfortunately,
over
again.
over and over again.
Yes.
But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go there.
Right.
But
Right.
what other words do we have before we?
It had male and I think it showed William a second ago too. I don't
William?
know. Yeah, it had William. Male limit signature shift.
Signatures on the Constitution.
Possibly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Nation male limit shift. Yeah,
Cool.
signature.
Very nice.
So we're getting some little things.
We are.
adding up, which is
are.
good. All right. So I
This
was
is
gonna
incredible.
I normally go to Lodge Alley next. Lodge Alley is one of our first streets, and it's usually just a pass through because it's a quiet area. So we're gonna kind of just skip it.
Sure, that's fine.
But it's a really cool place anyway.
Yeah.
So if you get the chance to visit some of the alleys around town, by
Okay.
all means, if you find an alley, just go through it.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, hey, yeah.
I have to ask you, and I know this sounds kind of maybe morose, but I didn't realize we're staying at the Marriott.
Okay.
Okay, and on Calhoun Street,
Mhm.
right? I was doing a Around Me app.
Oh yeah, the church.
I didn't
down there,
realize
the
that
one
Ezekiel Baptist Church was less than a mile that they were those African Americans were
Right.
shot with that white supremacist.
Right.
That's incredible.
Is
to me.
there
That's just.
any activity like around that?
I mean, have you ever thought about?
So, all the hotels here have some kind of story. And that's
Okay.
one of the reasons why I like to go down Lodge Alley, is because Lodge Alley Inn is right next to it.
Mhm.
And I always joke around that every hotel has a ghost, but they don't give me free rooms to verify.
Right.
So starting next summer, the wife and I have already kind of put the money aside of every week I'm going to spend a night in one of the haunted rooms. As far as the Francis Marion, there are ghost stories there. I don't know them off the top of my head. Now you do have Marion Square right there as well. I looked into Marion Square for other reasons, investigating it for something else, non-paranormal. But I did do a quick little scan of the place. Sebastian. Sorry,
No, you're
upside
fine.
down.
You're fine.
But I did look into it just quickly, just kind of spent an hour there, kind of pacing back and forth, and I didn't come up with anything as far as Marion Square. However, what I was there for was the fact that there's a, have you ever heard of The Secret by Byron Price? It's a book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, one of
The Secrets, right? The Secret?
Yeah, The Secret.
I've heard
So
about
it's
it.
one of the treasures is buried here in Charleston.
Okay.
So
Okay, yeah. And where they have them all buried. And
Right.
You have to,
So,
decipher that. or
there's
whatever.
a verse and a
Right,
painting,
right.
Right.
So my location is Marion Square.
Okay.
So I have all of the clues figured out. I've already been given permission to dig, which is huge in
awesome.
Charleston. Like,
Yeah.
Charleston is very protective over land.
Wow.
And I had to go in front of 3 different government agencies to be able to get that approval with
Wow.
a presentation.
It's gonna
I've
be
already
so
dug
cool.
once, and I
Uh-huh.
believe it's shifted. We're talking about 39 years after the fact that it was buried. So
Right.
now they've given me permission for GPR, and that's trying to find something more
Ground Penetrating Radar.
affordable.
Yeah.
With GPR is ridiculous. I've already contacted the college. Maybe they want to get in on this little project, but I'm not allowed to reveal. I mean, I've already said Marion Square, but I'm not allowed to reveal
Right.
how I did it until after it's dug out of the ground. They want no publicity. It's all on me. I'm like, great, because I'm going to run a tour and charge $50 a head to show people how I did it, write a book about it. Like, this is a marketing piece for
Sure,
me.
sure.
You know, so
Yeah.
my wife's involved. She's in graphic design, so she did the
Oh,
painting piece.
awesome.
I was partnered up with somebody that was kind of mentoring me into the tourism industry, so I partnered with him about history.
Okay.
And then, of course, me, the wordsmith, I'm playing with the words and moving stuff around
Absolutely.
and trying to find it. And we actually have it line by line, and we thought we had it pinpointed to like a 5x5 square.
That's
we,
awesome.
we dug, again, came up empty-handed. I had endoscopes and cameras and stuff shoved into the
Right.
ground. We're trying to find this damn box.
Right.
And it's not really about, the
Yeah.
gem for me. It's a marketing thing for me.
Sure.
Not to mention, I'm a wordsmith. I should be able to figure this out.
Right.
Right.
But again, it's still up in the air. This has been a 2-year
But
project.
that would be so cool. Because there's only been, what, is 2?
3.
There are 3,
Three
yeah,
have
I was
been
gonna say 2 or 3, yeah.
found. Cleveland, Chicago, and Boston have been
That
found.
is so cool.
Yeah, so
Wow.
Charleston, they say, is the hardest one because basically it's based on the zodiac, and each birthstone is for the
Right.
right zodiac.
Right.
Well, ours here is April, and it's obviously a diamond. Diamond is the hardest rock, so
Right.
it's supposed to be the hardest puzzle.
Okay.
So, again, this is a huge deal for me when I get it completed and I'm allowed to write about it and I'm released from those,
Yeah.
government agencies to say, okay, do what you will. You failed, but if you want to market it, you can.
Yeah.
But everybody thinks it's actually a White Point Garden, and they're using a whole different verse.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
so-
it's
That
funny.
is-
You kind of remind me. I'm a huge movie fan too. That National Treasure from Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Kind of
That
looking
is
for
so
that
cool.
hidden
what's
treasure in
funny
the back of the
is-
Constitution.
I'm so
If-
excited
if
for
you
you.
look at National Treasure, I think it's the second one on the back of, is it a 20? Where it's the Philadelphia.
Yeah.
something
Right,
in
right.
there.
Yeah.
And it says 222 on the
Mhm.
clock.
Yeah.
That's one of the lines in the Charleston poem is 222. It doesn't link, but it was just ironic
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
that I was kind of like, oh, 222.
Yeah.
And there's no link to Philadelphia with this particular verse.
Right,
But
right.
I was like, that's really cool.
That is cool. That's really cool.
Oh, you got Johnny.
Johnny.
I don't know who the hell Johnny is.
Hey, Johnny.
Johnny's listening to you.
Oh. Big John
There
Kennedy
you go.
is a block away.
Oh.
And it's been saying like mail. Maybe that's what it was.
I
Maybe I'm
wonder
on this
if
side.
do you have any words that
Like-
are synonyms of the word big?
Let's see. Let's see this right here. Right, there we go. Okay. Song. Song locations.
Locations.
2/3. Highway tool.
Sebastian Schiff.
Two-thirds.
Two-thirds?
Slave trade was
Yeah.
that. Was,
Oh, the 2/3
Yeah.
law or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
where it's
the-
two. Yeah.
An African American was, or an African
Yeah.
was 2/3 of the
a
white
vote,
person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Song locations, 2/3 highway tool, Sebastian Schiff, signature limit, male nation, therapist strong. Could count, Warren Williams struck, weak mirror, Mateo, lock divide, illustrate, heard again, shop, religion, Dick tried, light,
lot
eggs.
divide.
Yeah.
So
Lot
it's
divide.
unsure based on my plats that I've looked at for this
Uh-huh.
land,
Right.
how far back their land actually went.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a possibility
Oh,
that
there
they're
you go.
talking about the lot divided.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's really cool. I mean, not everybody knows that.
Oh,
Right.
and I was asking about like her plots and
Yeah.
the flowers and whatever,
Yeah,
all that.
that's true. You were.
Beautiful
That's
issues.
true.
What's funny is the wife and I, and we're going to start walking and going
Okay.
Oh,
back.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Where are we on time? We've been chatting.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well,
You okay?
I missed this. It says, "Don't forget me."
Oh.
Okay.
I missed that.
So one of the
which-
things the wife and I want to do is, I'm sorry.
Oh, as I said, it says medium. You were talking.
Psychic.
Psychic, yeah. Hang on. It says me, anyone.
How is it?
Sorry, go ahead. Your wife and
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
We
ahead.
want to actually have a Stories in a Cemetery shop that sells equipment, focus on the paranormal, fiction and non,
Yeah,
and then
right.
upstairs have be a haunted hotel.
Uh-huh.
Like that's the gist of what we want to do.
right, and put it all on display, right? Yeah. Anyway.
There's never been an archaeological dig there, so we would have to have that done first.
Very interesting.
Before we built the Pinckney Mansion as our shop.
Right.
Like that's one of the things that we're kind of diving into. Like how much crowdfunding can we get for 20 million?
Right.
Sure.
Because that's what it's going to take.
Ooh.
Is about 20. So. It's later in the night.
Sorry, we're like taking on your time.
No, you're fine.
But when it's good company, I don't really care. You notice I wasn't staring at my watch. You know, go up and then we're gonna cross the street, go right through the market. Yeah, it's good company. The wife knows I work with it. And I'm not doing 2 tours a night right now. So if you guys were on by 7 o'clock tour, which obviously I'm not doing, then I would say, guys, I gotta go to my next group because I have to sanitize.
We started this whole thing, like kind of experiencing it. There is a hotel in San
Oh,
Antonio.
the Emily Morgan.
Emily Morgan, right next to Alamo.
I know that
And
name.
it was said to be haunted because the Emily Morgan was actually, in the 20s, was a hospital.
Okay.
And the morgue was in the basement.
Oh.
So we had kind of a pseudo tour of the basement and everything, and then we did a haunted tour of the Alamo, and they were telling us all the stories about the Texas heroes and stuff
So
like
we would
that.
always, yeah, we'd always stay there.
But the 7th floor, I think it was the 7th floor, there was one floor that had the activities, and we would always try to stay there. And we never really saw anything, but it was a very old, but very rich in history and accommodations kind of hotel. And I could just tell that when you walked into a hotel, one of those hotel rooms, the atmosphere just changed. It was just weird. It wasn't like it was outside.
Well, and there was one night when, because like, we stayed there several times, you could always feel kind of weird. The doors would like, you go to sleep, it'd be shut, you wake up, it'd be open or whatever,
Yeah.
But there was one night where we switched rooms because we went in there and it was just kind of like I laid down and it was just kind of like you could feel this terrible, like, nope, calm down, we need to change rooms
Yeah.
tonight.
We-
Because
yeah,
it was
we
just
were-
like not happening. It was just
Yeah.
such a bad feeling. It's like, I'm tired, we can't do this.
But the other thing we did, I don't know if you've heard about this before. Have you ever heard about the haunted train tracks in San Antonio?
No.
Well,
Okay. I don't know. But it's like what the story is. Back in the 40s, there was a train there was a bus that got stuck on a railroad crossing.
battery low.
Oh,
Oops.
It says what?
battery low.
No,
Yeah.
you're good. I actually have a little table to help fix.
So the whole thing is that the train did not see the bus, and it smashed into the bus and killed like a dozen school children. And the legend is, and this has been a legend in San Antonio for ever and ever and ever, that if you approach, it's like an L section. If you approach the L section and you go over the train tracks and you pull back around, you cannot go back over and stop on the train tracks, or your windows will break out or something.
Really?
Well, what we do
And
is
we-
you take the car, you
Yeah.
take the car and you go and you stop,
Yeah.
from here to that awning or whatever. You put your car in neutral and you just put your car in neutral and it appears to be uphill.
It appears to be
Your car
uphill.
will roll.
Yes.
It'll just start rolling and it'll roll up and over the road.
Straight over the tracks
Up
without
and
you
over
even putting
the
it in
tracks.
motion at all.
And
I know.
and you can like take the baby powder, do that. And,
Oh, we did that.
We've done that. And you see like sometimes you'll see like little fingerprints or whatever, and you can take pictures, you'll see herbs and whatnot. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's actually supposed to be comfortable. It's
We-
really supposed to be.
We did it one time with our daughter, and she was about probably 10 years old, maybe a little older. And we had a Dodge Caravan, and we had the lid open, and I was actually using a camera, and I was, as they were going over as they were approaching the rail thing, because it didn't go very fast, I was taking pictures, and we had one picture of my daughter, and there were tons of orbs around her. I don't know what that was, but it was the only picture that we got with lots of orbs. So
with orbs, there's different colors of orbs.
yeah,
So, and
right.
they usually mean something. With every particular type of, I did a study on it, of course. Trying to figure out, like, why do I have green orbs in this picture, but there's blue ones in that one.
Right.
But basically, there's a color theory in the afterlife.
Okay.
That when you pass over, and this was done scientifically, of course, that you're a light orb based on the level of how many times you've been reincarnated.
Wow.
So, what was that doctor's name? I read all his books, they're amazing. And they were actual studies based on hypnotism. So these people would go back into their previous life.
Okay.
And they would talk about the 1600s.
Oh, wow.
They were Viking, whatever.
Right.
Like
Wow.
this crazy stuff. And their
Wow.
names aren't anything that we know of today.
Okay.
Like he would ask them to spell it. Like, and it's literally the conversations, the documented conversations. Oh, what was that guy's name? But the books are called Journey of Souls.
Journey of Souls.
And it's an amazing thing. Like, and even all of my books that I've written, because I do everything in the afterlife.
Right.
Everything is based on his color theory. It's
Wow.
basically just think of the full spectrum, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like the blues and purples are your higher power,
Okay.
Right.
and
Okay.
those are the age of the soul.
Okay.
So that's what they look like in the afterlife. And then, of course, like your reds, oranges, and yellows are your earlier, younger souls.
That's what the color orbs were. They were red, yellows, and oranges.
So with the orbs, there's a tie into that. If you look at the way, like psychics and mediums, like when they give you your aura pictures and there's
Right.
orbs and pictures, there's always things like the red, oranges, and yellows. Don't quote me on this, I
Okay.
haven't looked at it in a while, but let's say the red, oranges, and yellows are your younger souls. Your psychics will tell you that. Like, oh, there's a red orb by you, that's a younger soul.
Okay.
You have a green one
right,
next
right.
to you. They're more connected to Earth. They're kind of in the middle ground. Like it'll kind of give you all of those tactics. I wrote an article, a blog post called Oddity of Orbs, just because it is a very weird phenomenon that people catch all the time,
Sure.
and they don't know what they're looking at.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
a big deal to me because
Right.
you need, like, oh, I got an orb. Check out this picture. Like it's blue. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
Like that means somebody from higher up. Like
Right.
literally. Higher up has been reincarnated over hundreds, if not thousands of years, and that's who came through on your picture.
Wow.
You know, so when I get people sending me pictures and all that stuff all the time, it's a big deal because
Right.
let me explain to you which I'm looking at here.
Right. Right. Right.
All right, so
Okay.
this whole corner
Yes.
is littered with ghost stories.
Wow.
So tell me the last couple of words you got.
What church is that?
That's St. Philip's.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Really is beautiful.
Because that's going to help me direct of which story I'm going to tell you,
It
and then
says-
before we get into the powder.
Okay.
It says wheat maize update display.
Wheat is good enough.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go with, did you guys notice, yeah, we did come across Philadelphia Alley. Did you guys notice that little alley?
Yeah, I
The
did.
brick
Uh-huh.
alley?
Right.
Okay, so I used to take my people down there. I'm not allowed anymore.
Okay. Okay.
But with that said, that used to be called Cow Alley because that's where they kept all of the livestock.
Right.
And that's what wheat is kind of inspiring me
Sure.
to talk about.
Right, right.
So that used to be, after Cow Alley, it was called Dueler's Alley in the 1800s because
okay.
that's where all the duels would occur.
Oh, I see.
So the story we all tell, at least all used to tell, is of one duel. I'm going to make it brief because I really want to get into the Powder magazine. I think you're going to find this fascinating.
Okay.
But the duel, Dr. Joseph Brown Ladd moved here from Rhode Island.
Okay.
He's supposed to get married to his fiancee Amanda. I'm giving you those keywords again, so if in case anything pops up. Amanda just inherited a bunch of money from her dead parents.
Okay.
Okay, so the attorney that was handling that money said, "You're not getting married yet. Send the doctor away." So he comes to Charleston. The coachum that brings him into town, which was further uptown, set him up to be robbed and killed. Keep in mind the doctor was just coming out of med school, so he's still dressed pretty prominently, and this guy looks like he's got money.
Yeah.
Let's set him up. Somebody walking by sees what's going on. His name was Ralph Isaacs. Ironically, he has the same initials of where the doctor came from. Ralph Isaacs, Rhode Island.
yeah.
So our I show up here quite a bit. Well, even when I was in the alley.
Okay.
So he says, "You don't want to stay here. Let me take you somewhere else." He takes him past the church, 59 Church Street. And it's the Todd Rose house now, I think. Don't quote me on it. Thomas Rose, that's what it is.
Okay.
So the doctor, he becomes friends with this Ralph Isaacs. He's a local. But the doctor's practice starts to take off. He's making lots of money. Amanda's going to be moving down soon. He becomes known as the Whistling Doctor. Google the story, you'll get a lot more detail.
Okay.
But as the Whistling Doctor, making lots of money, he gets better seats at the plays than Ralph does. So they, as friends, they can't sit next to each other. The hierarchy of Charleston won't allow them to do it.
I see.
So they talk about the plays on the way home. right? They're
Got
walking
it.
back. They're talking about this William III that they just watched from Shakespeare. We had the word William up there earlier, I believe.
Right.
But the doctor loved the new actress that was in town. Ralph did not.
I see.
So they start arguing. Then it turns into an insult party on the doctor's fiance, Amanda, back home. Obviously, they get pissed at each other and they go their separate ways.
Got it.
Now, Ralph's from here. He's got ties to the newspaper. He calls his buddies up. He says, hey, I need to put an ad in the paper. We're going to talk about how big of a disgrace the doctor is to the city of Charleston.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty big deal.
Right.
So the doctor sees it. He rebuttals with, let's go to Dueler's Alley and we're going to settle this. So they come down. They take their 20 paces. They turn. The doctor points his gun in the air and he shoots. He did not want to kill his friend. He wanted to make a point, willing to forgive. Ralph still had his one shot. Puts it in the kneecap on the doctor.
Ooh.
So there is a doorway from that alley that comes over the courtyard and then over to the cemetery. That's normally where the loser would go because he's dead. They're going to go bury him right now and go celebrate the winner.
Right.
Right.
That didn't happen to the doctor. Instead, he came through the courtyard and they took him home, where he died 10 days later. He probably bled himself out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, because he's a doctor.
Sure.
Probably just
I
stealing
thought
meth
that
that he
was.
knew.
You said trip.
Did it say trip?
Yep. It says trip.
So I'm surprised it didn't say kneecap. I did get knees last night telling that story, so that's a
Okay.
good sign. But they say as you walk through that alley, you can hear the whistles from the doctor. It was a place where I could show people how to just listen to your audio. Spirit box is down. Because when we walk through it, we're just going to listen for the audio piece tomorrow morning.
Wow.
So that would be, if you guys walk down there, it's really cool.
Okay.
What I'll also tell you, and the guy that lives at the end is the one that I made angry at the end of that alley. If you guys decide to walk down there, he's the new neighbor. It's a giant mansion. You can't miss it. And technically, I'm not allowed in residential areas.
Okay.
So at the end, right outside his door, is a brick with a handprint in it. Those bricks were sun-dried by slave kids. You
Right.
could see that it's a child's handprint in the brick.
Wow.
And there's fingerprints from where they swiped it, and they were turning it from
Right.
sun-drying them.
Right.
Because they weren't baked, they weren't cooked.
Right.
So at any rate, I used to show off that handprint all the time. I'm like, but we gotta be brief. Somebody lives there. Let's be respectful.
Yeah.
Knowing in my mind it's residential, I'm not supposed to be here. But
Right.
this guy
Sure.
called me out.
Oh.
And he called the tourism office on me and blah, blah, blah.
Got it.
But anyway, so where are we now? We are at the Powder Magazine.
Okay.
So this held gunpowder for 7 different wars. Remember I told you
Wow.
that Charlestown was a walled city?
Sure.
The wall came right up Cumberland Street.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this is literally where the walled city started.
Okay.
Going this way.
Okay.
It went up about half a block that way past the Powder Magazine. So the Powder Magazine was literally right tucked in the corner of the wall.
Okay.
Like right over there?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the building with the crosses on it. Your actual earthquake bolts. We'll get into that in a second. But
Okay.
it went just past it, so it was just inside the walls.
Okay.
The reason why it's so far away from the water is because if it gets penetrated by a cannon, these walls are 32 inches thick.
Right.
It's going to have a hard time. But in the event that it does, and the gunpowder inside goes ablaze, there's sand in the roof from 1712 that'll blow up into the air and then fall to put out the fire. That's the way it's designed.
Wow.
Sounds like a great idea, but it doesn't work. We had another powder magazine closer to the battery, obviously much closer to the water based on the way the size of the peninsula is, but it did blow up. The sand was unable to put out the fire.
Wow.
So this one has never been attacked, and this is the oldest government building on the East Coast.
Oh.
1713 is when this was finished.
With the crosses?
Yep.
Wow.
So, I thought you would get into that. It's
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cool facts about this place. So those crosses you see are earthquake bolts. I
Okay.
told you about the big
Right.
earthquake, right? So
Right.
in the event a building gets quaked, the bolts are on basically turnbuckles. You can tighten them up and it'll straighten the building back up again.
Oh, wow.
Now, I just learned from a Californian who used to have those all the time all over his neighborhood. They don't really work.
No, I wouldn't think so.
But
No.
these, now remember, the building was finished in 1713. The earthquake was in 1886. I want to say the earthquake bolts would have probably been installed between 1888 and 1890.
Okay.
Okay, but these were the first set of earthquake bolts that we put in Charleston.
Wow.
Now they're all over the place. We still put them in new buildings. This apartment
Really?
building that's behind it has earthquake bolts. We just can't see them very well. They're square plates, and they go through the floors of the building. They're on every single floor. So as we get closer, you'll see the earthquake bolts there.
Okay.
Now, our story is tied to the time period that this building was being made. So it took a whole decade to make that tiny little building, 1703 to 1713.
Okay.
So in 1708, you guys are making me talk now. 1708, a young lady moves here from Ireland with her dad and his mistress, who happened to be her mother. You guys follow me on that
Got
one?
it. Got it.
They were getting away from his wife,
Okay.
pretty scorned lady, obviously. She's almost a teenager at this point. She sees the building being finished. She becomes a teenager. Pirates moving through town all the time. She falls in love. His name is James Bonney. He's a filthy pirate. Dad does not approve.
Bonnie sounds real familiar.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
It's going to be in a minute. So, once Dad doesn't approve, what does Anne do? She takes her new beau and she goes down to Jamaica with him, and they get married. Anne Cormack is now Anne Bonny.
Anne Bonny.
So, very famous female pirate.
Right.
That's it. That's right. Okay.
So,
yeah, I remember that now.
She is dying to become a pirate, and James Bonney, when she gets down to Jamaica and they're already married, she realizes he's a privateer, which basically means he's a coward because he's a spy for the British.
Right.
So this is not the Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow
No.
kind of guy she
Right.
wanted.
Right.
So she falls in love again.
Okay.
John Rackham, a.k.a. Calico Jack.
Who's over there on that?
Calico Jack has his own ship, a much younger guy. And Calico Jack was known for wearing the clothes of the people he killed, which is why he was very dapper in his clothing. He wasn't always
Nice.
clean, but she says, "Hey, new beau, can I become part of the pirate crew?" He says, "Well, females curse pirate ships." And he says, "If you do that, you're going to dress like a guy." She's perfectly fine with that because Dad, back in Ireland, used to hide her as an apprentice under his attorneyship from his wife. So she says, "Okay, whatever." So, sorry, this is a long one.
That's okay.
Oh, you're good.
You're
But
good.
with that said, she's a guy on the crew, but she's a female in his quarters. So eventually she gets pregnant, obviously, right? We're talking about no kind of protection.
Sure.
So what does Calico Jack do? He drops her off in Cuba. Says, "Go have the baby, because you can't have a pregnant dude on the ship."
Right.
Right.
So,
Right.
go have the baby. We'll figure it out when you get back.
Okay.
She has the baby, but doesn't come back with it. We don't know what happened to that child. We don't
Huh.
know male or female, stayed with the family, made it or not.
Right.
Now she's dressed like a female. She's pretty angry. She doesn't give a damn about hiding that gender anymore. Makes Jack mad. So
Okay.
she goes down below deck on the cruise ship to go flirt with the pirates that he just captured. Well, the guy she's flirting with reveals his gender, and that is a female dressed like a guy to become part of the pirate crew that Jack just captured. So
Sounds like a pattern.
it is. It's a very big pattern. It's the only way women can make money on their own
I
through
see.
piracy.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, this young lady's name was Mary Reed. That should be a very familiar name too if you know Anne Bonny, because the two are two peas in a pod. Mary Reed then becomes part of the crew under Anne's suggestion, and then the British fleet rolls in. And we're talking obviously days, weeks later.
Right.
And all the other pirates are too drunk to come up from below deck from watching the other captives down below deck, so it's literally Anne Bonny and Mary Reed trying to take on the entire British fleet.
Wow.
Obviously that ship gets taken and captured,
Yes.
Calico Jack included. So, Anne and Mary hurry up and tuck their hair under their crazy pirate hats, and they get captured, and the pirates down below deck, they're tried and hung pretty quickly by Chief Justice Nicholas Laws.
Okay.
So, the Chief Justice wants to see the two people that fought back by themselves. So they go up against them a week later, and they reveal their gender. He's like, "I don't care. I'm still going to try and hang you for piracy." Then they pled their bellies, which both means that they were claiming to be pregnant.
Right.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he says, "Okay, so we'll delay your hanging. You're still going to be tried. Not,
Yeah.
you're convicted."
Right.
So, Dad is still here in Charleston. He has his attorney Irish money from back home, even though he was a farmer here near the Georgetown area.
Right.
He still had his stash. And Mom is dead, by the way. Mom
Okay.
died pretty quickly once they moved here.
Got it.
So, Dad bails her out, brings her back here. From what I know of the story and all of the other stories I've read about her, she came here, remarried again. We're on guy number 4, by the way. Had 4 children and died at the age of 84.
Wow.
Other stories say that she came here, then moved to kind of a couple spiders hanging out. Some other stories say that she moved to Virginia, but all those details, 4 kids, remarried, 84, are all the same.
Right.
So I'm only giving you the details. I've read 5 books on this woman. Of what was common. As far as Mary Reed, she died from whatever pirates died from in a Jamaican jail. So if it was bumpy and nasty, we're not going to get into all of
Sure.
that. We don't even know if the pregnancy was real. Wow, he's a big one, huh?
I know, right?
Right here. Go back up, buddy. There you go.
Oh yeah, I see. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
So again, the time period is, this is something familiar to her.
Sure.
I'll be honest, I didn't even believe the story. Once I got kicked out of Philadelphia Alley, I had to reroute things. But I know all the stories in the corner, so I used to tell that and kind of ended on legends and lore, and I was like, let me start doing an investigation here.
Right.
So the dates of the trial show up here. I'm not going to tell you what those are. This is the expert level. You get to ask what you want, because there's a lot of holes in this story.
Right.
And I'm still learning, so you get to ask whatever you want. We're going to get close. This is a very popular area for other tours. If they want to come by, I can hear that they're in the front telling that story. That's why I stayed to the side. My
Gotcha.
groups are noisy.
Yeah.
I don't like to be in their way. Plus,
Right.
my group's spread out. So let's get close. Turn that spirit box up.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see what we can capture.
Okay.
I wasn't like a pirate person until I started getting into the story and reading all the books. Now I'm finding her in video games I'm playing. My wife's like, isn't that the Anne Bonny? Yes.
It is that.
But that just said something. I couldn't hear what. Again, this is how all my tours go. This is just the demeanor that I hold for everybody.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. This is awesome.
And what's funny is I normally don't get anything here, and this is already spiking a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
It went up to like 0.8.
Yeah. When you're talking about putting that in there and like after the whatever it's talking about transformations, you know, you
Oh,
yeah, it's
yeah.
a transformation.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice.
But you can see how crude they are. I
Yeah.
mean, that one's coming off the building. You know, you can see the bolts in there. And these little peach plates on the floors.
Right.
Those are same thing.
That's funny that it seems to be like in a Spanish architecture. I didn't think Spanish architecture was in Charleston in the 1600s.
I honestly don't know what I mean, I have the books on it. I could probably look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't something I've memorized. Most
Yeah.
people, the only architecture people want to know about is what was the. So that guy's really loud.
Yeah. What you have to do if you got like 10 or 15 people.
I'm still not that loud.
No.
I won't do it. Some of them guys are carrying bullhorns around. They're not allowed to. Like, come
don't
on.
have
I
to
know you
do
guys
that.
are reading the script. And you
Yeah,
gotta give me your stuff.
exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I wanted something different. I didn't want to be run of the mill.
This is definitely different. This is a building we've never even.
Oh, I've been.
And-
Some people say, "Oh, I did a ghost hunting tour before." I'm like, "Really? What city?" And they'll tell me what city, and I'll look up every ghost tour in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them will give out like little EMF meters, like this guy, or they might give a much lower grade thermal imaging camera, but they're not giving the camera back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're not giving the video back.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I saw something you caught. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And,
You know what I mean? They're showing pictures on their phone all
Yeah,
night. It's
yeah.
like, come on, man, do this stuff in real time.
Exactly. Be legit.
Yeah, exactly. Be honest.
Be honest and be legit. But the one we had in New Orleans was, we had a good tour, but it was all about the history, not more about the evidence, about all the history they filmed. You know, they had different murderesses and murderers, and also they did a lot of filming for Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
They took it from different parts of the city. And that's kind of like, it was kind of like a history / publicity tour for New Orleans. And they did show us some things that, you know, that they had seen before, but it was more like the history. It was not a lot about the ghost, but about the history. So,
History of the city.
but, I mean, but it was good. It was really awesome.
I haven't been in New Orleans.
It's awesome.
I just got invited to go, and I haven't been to St. Augustine yet, but another podcast interviewed me a few weeks ago, and they're doing a private investigation of the lighthouse down there.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that on
What's
Ghost
that?
Hunt, the St. Augustine Lighthouse.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'll
The
be
oldest
down
one
there. Yeah. So I'll be down there in September.
Yeah.
I have to take a weekend off, but of course the wife, my ghost hunting and stuff is
Yeah.
50-50.
Sure.
So it's 2 days with her, 2 days doing ghost
I
stuff.
got you. I got
So,
you. I got you.
You know,
I got you. I understand. That's
I'm going up north. I'm going up to like the Pittsburgh area.
yeah.
And that's where my in-laws are. But
Sure.
my father-in-law, he's like you. He loves all this stuff. And every
Uh-huh.
time I get a new gadget, he wants to go try it out
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So like we're going to the Pittsburgh aviary. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be haunted. I mean, I want to go to the aviary anyway because I'm into birds.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a, all right, let's take the gear. Let's
Yeah,
see what we
let's
can
go
capture.
find it,
It's
see what we
another
find.
podcast. What do
Yeah.
I care?
Yeah.
If it's-
That's what I always thought was so just, it got kind of monotonous. I mean, I get what they were trying to get the audience to understand, but why were they always going to sanitariums, hospitals that were for terrible
they're
reasons?
creepy.
You know, they'd just be super, super creepy.
Right.
You know, and you know, showing that balls could roll by themselves. And I was like, what is the point? What are you trying to say? You know, you just want to find the baddest spirits you can find and anger them?
So I would say my most interesting investigation privately that
Okay.
I've done was the Flight 93 Memorial
Oh, wow.
in Shanksville.
Oh, wow.
So again, I told you I have all my gear on me.
Yeah.
I went to go visit just to pay my respects.
Sure.
Ran all the gear.
Right.
And that was the most evidence I've ever caught.
Is that right?
And that was an hour-long episode of just me. like
Wow.
talking about the history. Because afterwards, I
Sure.
go in blind. I don't. The only thing I knew about that place was that was 9/11.
Yeah.
And that was Flight 93. I knew nothing else. I
Yeah.
didn't know the names of the people. I didn't know who was on there, how many.
The passenger
the story.
they would overcome the terrorists, and they made them crash into the field.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, but I don't know any
No.
of that stuff.
Right.
You know, I mean, I was
Sure.
around for it. I was old enough to understand
me
it.
too, yeah.
But at the same token, I read all the books after I went through the data. So that way, when I'm going through the data, there's
Right.
no suggestive thought.
Yeah.
I had Iraqi on one spare box, but American on another. These are terms that don't normally show up. I
No.
had one of the flight attendants' names show up.
Oh my gosh.
But all of these, I mean, it was a million things that came
Right.
up. But I did a whole dedication piece, and I released it on 9/11 last year.
Right.
So it was kind of like it had a lot of hits, obviously. But
oh,
I did it
absolutely.
respectfully.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
wasn't like, oh, check out this badass ghost kicking a ball.
Yeah. Why? I mean, why you want to do?
And I
stuff
like to go to
that?
the places that people don't go to. That's why I
Sure.
even the tours. It's the same
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, people
Yeah.
don't go into the Pinckney Mansion. It's like,
I think he plays a lot off of. He goes a lot of the Western locations. He plays a lot off our ghost town,
yeah.
you know,
Tumbleweed type
tumbleweed
places,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I get it, you know, but still, you know,
She's having a whole conversation back here.
she is.
What you got
She's been
going on?
doing good. What you got?
Hazel.
Hazel.
I was asking about her child and anyway, I don't know.
I can't say I've ever seen that term here before.
Probably nothing, but anyway.
Can I see the other terms that you got?
Sure, of course.
Anything related?
Fruit related provisions, a company. It's asking about
Provisions would
Yeah.
be.
which was her favorite husband.
Carter.
Amanda and Medicine.
Amanda and medicine.
Dr. Joseph Brownlad is supposed to get married to Amanda.
Oh my gosh. Look
That
at that.
is awesome.
Yeah, and medicine. Yeah. Counter.
And they're right next to each other.
They are. That's it.
Well, not to mention, he's the one who accepted the counterattack.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
that's funny.
Let's see, what's below that? Maybe something else popped up
Yeah.
with it too. Here, flow,
Video transformation.
Okay, so you've kind of seen all that. I have not seen Medicine and Amanda earlier.
so
funny.
That's awesome stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
And provisions. I mean, this was like the Powder magazine. They were definitely provisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So all of the tools and apps that I use are also at the top of your data page. Everybody asks me about that particular that. This is a paid version. It has a much
Okay.
bigger vocabulary.
Sure.
But everybody asks me, what is it called?
Right.
There's a free version because I mean I encourage you guys to use them.
Right.
You know, so you get used to it. But
Right.
it's fun to
time,
play with.
one time I downloaded an app on my phone and I was pushing it around. And I thought, oh, I'll find something. It's like, wow, this is silly.
EMF meters on phones work.
Is that right?
I have no idea how,
Wow.
but they work.
How about that?
It's crazy to me. I have 2 or 3 that I use, you know, just in case something battery dies. And by the way, that phone was fully charged when I left the house.
Oh, yeah, because it died a minute ago. That's
Remember,
so
I had to
bad.
plug
Yeah.
it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we have
and
that
that
battery
happens,
back.
like they said, the battery
It's
drain.
exactly what happened tonight.
Wow.
I literally pull this stuff off the charger before I leave the house.
There's
Wow.
been because I've been watching your little. it's been
Yep.
lighting up.
And this one, I've just been filming. I've been away from you. Is still good. That's really just bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just you just don't think those kind of
And
things.
I
people do.
also carry this little pouch is a full set of batteries for everything that needs
Sure.
regular batteries.
Sure,
Right.
'cause you never know.
I just keep a stock of
Right,
them.
just in case.
Yeah.
Right.
Have you ever had an experience where, you know, sometimes they say the temperature just dropped, or I felt a chill, or I got the
Yeah, but I get the
back of my
proof.
head? Exactly.
Right.
That's the whole point.
Exactly.
So I will say here in Charleston, near the Pink House, which is 1 year older than the Powder magazine, 1712.
Okay.
There's a little lot next to it, and I used to go up there with my
Right.
groups. I mean, literally, you want to talk about a temperature drop? I didn't have the different thermometers yet,
Uh,
but it was probably 15 degrees. Like, we could literally
Wow.
put our hand through it.
wow.
Like a portal or something?
Did you get the word mirror?
No, not yet, or whatever. No,
Because
just
I
like a
normally
portal.
tell the little brick building over there that used to be a restaurant, but they're no
He's
longer
got
there
chills.
because we're talking about cool
Yeah,
spots.
I know,
crazy.
right?
Actually, let me turn
crazy.
this up.
So funny.
So it says we're at 75.5 degrees ambient temperature. That's what the little yellow probe measures.
Yeah.
When you turn it off, it allows the milligauss to be measured.
Okay,
a
I know
little
it's
bit more
silly, but
accurate.
like right here behind me, I know we were just talking about it, but I know is it like the same exactly like right here? Is it any cooler right here? It's like right behind me. Yeah.
It's dropping.
Just like right here
Went
behind
down
me.
to
Yeah.
about half a degree.
Yeah.
Now it went up to 77.
I don't know.
like that.
I know. I just felt cooler like on my neck and whatever. Anyway, it's silly, but
Yeah. Oh,
not
that's
silly at all.
anyway.
That's why we do this.
okay.
Chills. Like normally this thing
Anyway.
will alert you when it drops by 5 degrees or more.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
But right now it's sitting at 77.
that's so funny.
Huh.
Anyway.
That would be very unique to have a cold spot. You can actually feel it
That's so
happening.
funny.
Well, here comes a little breeze.
Yeah.
But that's also a cemetery on the other side.
Oh, really?
That's where Calhoun's buried, by the way. You seem like a history guy.
John C. Calhoun?
Yep, that's where he's buried on that
Yeah.
side. Now there's two sides to the cemetery. Remember I told you they would take the losers over to that
Right.
side? That's where native Charlestonians. This side's for everybody else.
I see.
Calhoun has moved 3 times, I think.
Wow.
Because he's in a sarcophagus. They could just pick him up, take
Right.
20 guys, and move it.
There you go.
So they didn't know if he was from here or not. So they moved him several times trying to figure it out. We landed over here.
Oh, wow.
And actually right where you're staying, they just took down that big Calhoun monument.
Oh, wow.
It was 50 feet in the air.
50 feet in the air. Wow.
That was actually part of my secret solve. I was
Oh,
pissed
okay.
when they took it down. I know it has its racial value.
That's why they did it?
But
Yeah, it was
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
it was the Black Lives Matter.
Oh,
Like they came
wow.
after it, and I mean, they littered that thing, would take it down, like big bright neon posters all
Oh
over
my
it. Until finally the
God.
mayor said, "It doesn't belong here anyway. Let's take it down."
It's probably a little scary time for you guys.
Oh yeah, I
Because
was
you're
doing
all about
tours.
history and...
it's still a scary time. I watch the news every day. I have
Yeah.
alerts on anything Black Lives Matter or the new one that's down here. What's Stand to Unite or something like that. We have another group in Charleston that, like, and we have a lot of Confederate guys here. Like they are violent. They wave the flags every Sunday down at the Battery.
oh my goodness.
So yeah,
Really?
oh yeah, every Sunday morning they're down there with their Confederate flags because you got Jasper down there.
Wow.
You have who's the other one that's down there? Sims is down there, but he was more of an author. But again, it's a battle every weekend down there.
Every weekend.
It's just like not to say that it happens every weekend.
Yeah.
I'm watching every weekend
Right.
Sure.
because I
Well, it's
have to know
only
what's going
smart,
on.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's
That's
times
just-
like I did when we had a riot last summer. I was doing a tour.
Wow.
And what's funny is I carry this giant bag, and this just goes to show you what the racial things are in our country right now.
Right.
White guy walking through with this giant bag
Uh-huh.
through 15 cop cars. Nobody stopped me. I went to my tour. I said, "What do you guys want to do here?" Like
Uh-huh.
you can hear the gas bombs going off 2 blocks away.
Oh, my gosh.
It was over by Marion Square. Right where you guys
Wow.
are staying. You know
Wow,
how close we
yeah.
are to the beginning.
Right,
Where
right.
the tour started. So they're like, "We're packing. Let's go."
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. I
Yeah.
did pretty well in tips that night. I'll
Yeah.
say that because I went
Yeah,
through
dude,
it.
yeah.
And I'm not. What am I? $1.50?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. But now, anytime there's any kind of like, I just cancel it. Like I'm not
I
gonna put
totally
anybody in danger.
understand.
You know, and I tell people, like, I'm sorry if I'll reschedule, refund, whatever you need me to do. I just don't feel like it's gonna be safe. I don't know what's gonna
I
happen.
totally
I didn't even
understand.
think about
It's
that.
a dangerous time.
Yeah. Like my wife
really
freaks out
is.
every time I come downtown. That's why I text her when I get to my garage. I text her when I walk away from you guys and go back.
Yeah.
I'm on my way to my car. So that way she knows that's another reason why I park on this street, is so I
Right.
can get back to my car quickly.
Right.
So
I would hope that, and I wouldn't speak for anybody, but I would hope they would think you were glorifying what happened and you just telling it like
Well,
it
it's
is.
just-
It's historical.
That's what it is. It's just history.
It's just
you know?
history.
I
So
mean,
when I do have a diverse group,
right.
I'm not afraid to use the word slaves. I'm not afraid
Sure.
to say that, there were slave kids that turned sun-dried bricks.
Right.
That were standing in the servant quarters.
Right.
I'm not afraid to say any of those things. And I think most of that crowd that I get appreciates the fact that I'm open about it.
Absolutely.
Do I agree with what they're doing around our country? I don't. I'll just put
Right.
it out there.
Right.
I don't condone it. You're trashing cities for no reason.
Right.
We have a beautiful city here that's trying to hang on to history, and they're about to do this huge, giant project for the next 10 years, trying to modernize it. I'm
Yeah.
pissed about it because it's history.
Right.
We're losing some of it.
Yeah.
But now you're trashing what we have left.
Right.
And that's where I get upset. I don't want all of these riots down here. I understand you're upset, but there's better ways to do it.
Well, I mean, that's just
I
it. It's
agree.
history, and if anything, we learn from our history.
Right.
We can't forget it. We have to learn from it. And
I was more upset because that Calhoun monument being 50 feet in the air,
Right.
it's a certain time of day that points right to where where the treasure
Right.
is, based on
Oh,
that
no.
monument.
Oh, no.
Granted, I have pictures,
Right.
so it was in my presentation.
But still.
Yeah.
But still, it's no longer there. But it's something when I do dig this thing up and are able to give tours, I can point that out. Like, hey, Calhoun used to stand right here at this specific time. You can see where it's pointed.
Yeah.
You know, at this time of year, because it's a specific time of year and time of day. So it's,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, you got to imagine the sun moves.
Sure. Yeah.
Is there any story for the last 4 words?
Major and chamber.
And mattress in the chambers.
In major? Was there? That sounds like an interesting story.
It does.
I mean, we literally
Yeah,
have all of these names.
Right?
Wow.
That is
Chamber,
wild.
right. See, isn't that crazy?
That is. That's amazing.
Well,
Anyway,
I would tell
yeah.
you, normally at the end of a tour, I will say this was kind of moderate from what I normally see until I look at the data in the morning.
Right.
I'm really excited about this list.
Great.
Yeah.
Because that means her spirit box probably has something else too.
Sure.
So that just,
crazy.
it's only going to give you more. Like Anne in the
awesome.
chamber, if the word baby comes up, we're going to give it another minute.
Right.
You know, before I call it.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and circle back and let's wait for something else to pop up.
Okay.
Because that's a lot.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Not to mention Medicine and Amanda.
That was, yeah.
Like, that's
significant.
good
yeah.
stuff.
Very good stuff, yeah. But you have to know the history. If you just had those names, you had no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, you got to know the history.
Right.
That's
crazy.
something. Yeah, I just love that stuff.
And that's why I give you guys the stories first.
Yeah,
So you don't
yeah.
think I'm making this stuff up.
Right,
You
right.
know, I get.
Didn't fit the words.
right. Like, oh no, this is
You know,
what
I
the
have
person
people,
did.
like I'm standing with my hand in my pocket. You're making that EMF meter go off. How so? Like, which button do you see in here? Like, I get accused of.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I mean, in the wintertime, I got a jacket. There's pockets everywhere.
Yeah.
I'll
Right.
add extra tools in the pockets so I
what
can
are you
pull them out
doing?
quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
I always get the skeptics, and I stopped asking where the skeptic was because I didn't want to focus on them
Sure.
all night trying to prove to them
Right.
that the paranormal is real. Because what happens, Michael says, I'm a skeptic. I need some proof. I'm like, all right, Michael, let me really show you. And then everybody else loses out.
Sure.
So I just stopped, and people are like, well, so-and-so. I'm like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
you're going to ruin the tour because I'm going to lose my focus.
Right.
So
Sure.
for my mentality, let's just everybody's here to have fun
Yeah.
and to learn how to use stuff you've never used
Right.
before.
An experience. It's an experience.
That's the way we've.
Yeah.
It's always been. I know. There's just always been too much that like, where I've just had weird feelings like all my life or whatever. And especially after our daughter was born, where I'd say something would.
Daughter's name is Brittany?
Yeah.
Yeah,
she-
her
yeah.
name's Brittany.
My daughter's name is London.
Oh, how funny!
That's funny. Yeah.
My youngest daughter.
Yeah.
What is her middle name?
Her middle name? London Ray.
beautiful.
Britain Michelle, but
Britain
anyway,
Michelle,
it's
yeah.
feminine of Michael. But anyway, after Britain was born, but just I had these feelings that something would happen, and I don't even know how many times it has, but I don't know. So we just
And
have
our
always been so
granddaughter,
open.
oldest granddaughter, is Brooklyn.
Yeah, she's
So-
Brooklyn. That's right.
She's Brooklyn, so
So London Ray.
yeah.
London's ruling planet, based on when I knew she was going to be born,
Uh-huh.
she was scheduled, is the moon. It's not an actual planet, which I found very unique. So her name means wise protector of the fortress of the moon, which
Very
is why.
cool.
Oh, wow.
Very
And then
cool.
my other daughter, if you notice her birthday,
October
Oh,
31st.
funny.
and she has a witch's name,
so-
Serena Christiana.
Beautiful name.
It is
So
beautiful.
we have Serena and London.
Right.
We've never had our charts, or I guess that's,
Yeah,
is that what you call them? Done?
I mean, there's a million things you can do. Edgar Casey, if you can, swing $100 to get that full report, you'll get a 40-page report out of
Oh,
that,
wow.
based on the time of day that you were born,
Really?
on the date that you were born, where
Yeah.
the stars align, and how it'll match up to you. It's amazing. I have
See,
one-
I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big numbers guy because everything in our lives have and it's you believe it or not, everything in our lives for the last, we've been married almost 40 years, has surrounded us by even numbers. There's never been a lot of odd numbers in our lives. And I'm thinking even numbers that always, and I'm the kind of person like, okay, where are we living? Can I add up to even? Oh yeah, that'll be a good place to get. That'll be a good place to live. Odd, I don't like odd numbers, but even seem to fit our lives, and it's really weird. Most of the places we've lived, most of the places, our anniversaries, our daughter's birth date, our
Is there a specific
granddaughter's
digit that
birthdays.
shows up often?
12.
12.
12.
Interesting.
We were married on the
Well,
12th
two.
of March, and
Two's all over the place.
our daughter was born on the 12th of August. I'm 22, she's 26. Birthdays.
Yeah.
So it's twos. Twos is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
prominent for us. And so it's always my lucky number is 2.
So my previous wife, everything was November 1st. There was always a major incident on November 1st. So that is the start of winter solstice
Yeah.
in the pagan religion. So
It's
what-
true.
So obviously there's Samhain, which is Halloween,
Right.
Which we didn't want to take when we got married. We didn't want to take her birthday away from her.
Sure.
We got married on 11/1.
Got it.
Ironically, that was the same anniversary of her grandfather's death. That was every time I moved as a kid, it was always November 1st. Always November 1st. There was always weird things with 11/1. So when I remarried, it was almost the same thing. Like we literally got married, and think of me what you will, I was seeing my wife during the divorce of my previous wife.
Got it.
But
Okay.
it was a matter of we got married 2 days after because the way the courts went down, they wouldn't allow my current wife to be around my
Right.
daughter.
Right.
So it was kind of all right, she's handicapped. I can't have this anymore. Let's get married the day after where I get divorced. And she's like, no, I don't like that number. Go to the next day.
Right.
So it was January 14th.
Yeah.
So again, it was always she's, April 4th is when her birthday is. I'm February 28th. Again, it seems like even numbers
Even
just
numbers
fit well with
They
us.
they flow through our lives.
Yeah.
I can go back to my past and her past. They still flow through our lives. It's just the even numbers. Odd numbers, not so much. And I'm the weirdest thing. I've never been able to explain this, but when you get gasoline,
Yeah.
I never stop on odd numbers.
Yeah, I won't
always
either.
I won't stop on odd numbers. I just don't. I just think it's bad luck. I'm not a superstitious
Follow
person.
the sun, right? Is that right? Or is
I
there
just
you're a little
don't.
too close in age, but not.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't stop on odd numbers. I'll go and just do a little bit more. As long as it's 2 and a 0, or 4 and a 0, or 4 and 2, I'm good.
Yeah, I got to
If
go
it's
up
a 7
to,
or a
yeah.
9. No.
And I usually, if it's on the change, I have to go up to the next 10.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
if it's like
Okay.
32,
Yeah.
I won't go to 35. I'll go to 40.
Yeah.
I'll always push it to 40.
Right.
Here's a weird number thing for you. So I was living in Cleveland. I'm originally from Ohio.
Okay.
I was originally from Youngstown, but I was living in Cleveland with my first fiance. God, you guys probably gonna think the horrible thing of it. But anyway, the address we had was a rearrangement of my last 4 digits of my social security number.
That's odd.
And I was 19 when I lived there, so that was
Wow.
over 20 years ago.
Wow.
To this day, I still use a combination of those 4 numbers as passwords to everything.
Wow.
Funny.
And what's funny is they spell out the word sing, like on a telephone,
Uh-huh.
old school, the one you pick
Oh
up?
yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. But I
Right.
remember.
It spells out the word sing.
Sing. Huh.
And I was a former musician. I used to teach music back
Oh,
in the day
wow.
when I lived in Cleveland. It's the rock
Oh,
and roll
wow.
city. So I was a rock
Right.
drummer. My father was a rock singer, so it was always in my blood.
Oh, my
so I was
gosh.
always around the bars and the scene and writing
Sure.
songs, and that's how
Sure.
all of my
Right.
writing got started. So
Yeah.
I have to thank my musicianship, and I could still pick up some sticks and chop,
Yeah.
Right.
but I can't teach anymore. There's no way. I'd
Right.
rather, I just teach privately and then in a
Right.
small studio.
Right.
But at the same token, it was like them stupid 4 numbers. My wife now is always like, "What the hell's the damn pin to that credit card?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Spell sing. Look at your credit card.
Spell
Look
sing.
at it and spell
Yeah.
sing.
Any way you
Right.
want to do it.
Any
spell
way you
sing.
want
Yeah.
it. That's the way it is."
That's- yeah.
And she's, not to give you guys my social security number or
No,
anything,
that's
okay.
but you could see like the rearrangement, how it stuck with me.
Yeah.
It's just a weird combination.
Yeah.
And I still remember that exact address of
Yeah.
where I lived in Cleveland over 20 years ago.
I still remember my address when I grew up in.
I remember my home phone number growing up as a kid. Can you say that one?
No.
So how old are you guys?
489.
57.
Okay.
Or 56. 57.
56, yeah.
We got
We're the
15
same
years
age.
between us.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I remember a lot of old phone numbers, but I remember my address and the address that I grew up with. The longest I lived as a kid, in 22. My birthday was 22. It just isn't that odd? I mean,
Yeah.
my mother's birthday was 11. One of mine is 2. It's just my father, 24, October 24. Half of twice 12. It's just you can make what you want, but it just seems so
There was a movie.
unbelievably
You
cool.
want to
don't you?
talk numbers?
Number
Did you see-
23?
Yep.
I saw it.
Jim Carrey?
He went crazy.
Yeah, that was a great film.
It was.
It was a great film.
It was. He got obsessed with Catcher in the Rye.
Right.
Yeah. That was really strange.
I
film.
thought it was great.
The
I loved
numerology is really interesting to me. Really interesting.
Well-
I don't think it has anything to do with occult or psychic or anything like that. I just think that it's just really cool.
I want to see what else came up. Sidewalk horrible confession. I love the Ann Chamber mattress
Isn't that crazy?
and then the medicine.
It's like that was a great story, huh?
That was. We got some good stuff.
Yeah,
right.
we got some. I'm actually really excited to listen to your spirit
That's
vibes.
great.
Again, the wife tried to help me with all of the casings because I had little cases for everything.